Welcome to another edition of Summoning Insight. We took the week off last week because of me. I was the one who decided...
So you took the week off?
I took the week off.
There we go.
I made you take the week off as well. I forced it upon you.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers, mate. Thanks for doing me a favor.
No problem. Yeah, I forced you to take the week off as well. Unfortunately, we don't have any LEC to talk about this week, but that does mean we actually do get to talk about some LCK later, which was an interesting week to do that because of Damwon versus DRX, even though it was a bit of a shit show in the end.
There was lots of weird results this week in LCK, so we'll see how much our guest has actually watched, just how much we can get into.
Yeah, and if, Zeyzal hasn't, we'll bid him an adieu early, and it'll just be me and Thorin talking about it, depending on how much he's watched. So we'll talk to Zeyzal in a little bit. I did want to pick your brain first, though, because I think you were tweeting about this, the post on the subreddit about the ESPN guy's feedback.
ESPN guy? I don't know that part.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what you're referring to now.
All right. Well, what were you tweeting about in regards?
I was referring to a thread that was on the subreddit, but it was like a fan, I think, just breaking down the analysis segment and saying how it was just completely useless. You're referring to my tweet thread where I was basically talking about the fact that it's a common theme if you've ever watched my content that as a content creator, I would say the most experienced, probably the best content creator ever in esports. Don't think I need to really qualify that statement. Just look at my body of work. I would say that I know better than most people what the audience wants, how to create different types of content, what content will appeal to different people. And I can tell you, it's just this thing that people on Reddit do, which is probably the most worthless discussion ever, which is where they act like posers and ask for content they themselves wouldn't want or up for.
Yes.
And then wonder why it's not there, and even worse, criticize content that is clearly palatable to the majority of the audience. So basically, here's the summary of how it goes. Right, the actual best game to see this kind of elitism in, bizarrely, is actually Counter-Strike. It's not League of Legends. So I'll give the example there because it's more extreme, whereas in League of Legends, it's a little bit more subtle and nuanced how it's woven into the discussion. Basically, in Counter-Strike, I am one of the only, I would say maybe there are 2 or 3 big content creators in Counter-Strike who can get their work onto the front page of Reddit. As in, not like to the top of Reddit, just get it onto Reddit. Anyone else, including, by the way, people you will know like Stuchu, their work gets downvoted in the majority of cases, even if I'm retweeting a tweet which features the thread in it, because that's how many people downvote good content there. Now, the reason they do it, if you read the rare comments that these people post, because the real problem here, as a quick aside, is that the way the Reddit algorithm works is the more upvotes or downvotes within the first 10 minutes, the more effective it is within the first hour, then the next 3 hours, then, it goes like that. So basically, you might think, well, I upvoted that post after I saw it, but you saw it an hour later. If the first 10 people who are losers in Anoraks who camp the new queue just downvote all the good content, you never get to see that and never upvote it. So never make the front page. So basically, when those people comment, because we're talking about so few people affecting the post, actually, this is a rare example of where the person downvoting is the person commenting on it. So I've read those comments for years, and I can tell you what the comments always say. It goes like this. This is just a rehash of things I already knew. There's nothing new in this, just clickbait. Or the third one is I disagree with this, but rephrased as, therefore it's all wrong. So what they do essentially is you either have to be literally everything you say has to be a brand new, innovative thought about the game that no one's ever discussed. As in the thread I'm referring to in the League of Legends sub. Even saying things like Bjergsen's had an off season was apparently something that everyone just knows and should never be mentioned. Saying things like, Niski carries and is dominant, but not in a traditional fashion. Apparently, we shouldn't say these things because the one guy who made the thread, he already knows that, whatever that means. I don't even know. And as a result, we should never, for the hundreds of thousands of people watching, ever mention even simple characterizations like that. So it's an extreme version of the point I'm making in the case of the CSGO sub. This is a more of a light-hearted version where I don't think the person looking at it is really even thoughtful from this perspective. But it's just something in general when you do broadcasts that irritates me. And the reason why I particularly brought it up is because I myself am the person who is so often on broadcasts arguing against dumbing the broadcast down. That's not what I'm arguing for now. But I do understand a concept that I've always actually preached to people who work with me on CSGO events. I always tell them, if you make an amazing point about a team, like a new idea you come up with, or like you collated a bunch of people's thoughts and come up with like a new way of explaining a principle, if you talk about it in game 1 of Group A, match 1, feel free to mention that in the playoffs, dude. Like, nobody who's watching the final probably remembers that. Many people didn't watch that game. So as a result, you need to actually repeat these things. You need to make these simple characterizations. You need to set up the game. It would be like thinking that if we do a cooking show and we're going, right, we're going to make a casserole, which is a dish that's been around for hundreds of years. So we won't be mentioning the ingredients. This dish, and it's done. No, obviously it's to mention. And you have the eggs, which you do that with. Like, you see the principle here. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
I like the phrase "losers and anoraks," by the way, that you started that rant with. It's a particularly good one, particularly evocative phrase. But
it's probably not as popular now, but basically they were like the weebs of my era when I was in the 80s.
So I think my take on this subject is,
what was the guy thing? Was it similar to this?
Oh no, it was some feedback about some Redditor allegedly asked some ESPN person for feedback and watched the show, and they were talking about specialization on the analyst desk for LCS, which I also thought was pretty silly. But I do want to respond to
was it a famous person?
They didn't name the person, but I assume it has somebody.
Oh, it was anonymous, right? Okay, yeah. I see.
Okay. But I think what's interesting about what you said is that I think people really need to ask themselves the following question. And I think this is a central riddle in League of Legends right now that everything you're talking about speaks to, which is this question. Why don't more people in the West watch the LPL? It's objectively right now the best region. I don't think many people would debate that. Top esports,
the form makes it better than LEC. I'm sorry, it just does.
Top esports, despite their upset loss this week, still looks amazing, and probably, unless something dramatically changes, is going to be the favorite for the World Championship should it happen. Okay? So the other aspect of this is, so we have to ask the question, why is that? Why are people not watching the best region in the world who has won the last 2 World Championships? And a lot of it is these narratives, guys. If what happens on the LCS broadcast for that TSM Cloud9 match and them repeating themselves is them trying to hook you with these stories. And by the way, guys, I think that the LCS did a really, actually very good job of revisiting these narratives, of showing all of the videos this past week of the previous iterations of the team. It was really good. Like, we shouldn't be criticizing them about that. I think their entire build-up and story creation was excellent. So to say that they repeated things in a pre-show, which a minority of the audience watched, in the segment right before the game, is kind of ridiculous, because you want to hit those narratives again to get people excited. And I think this is actually one of the best things LCS has done so far this split. So let's not criticize them for this. And here's the thing.
And so, by the way, a very classic approach to that, which you will have seen if you've ever watched old school. I'm talking in that scenario just for the people watching the show. If you ever watched early 2000s or 90s basketball, NFL, a common theme they used to use, which actually LCS themselves did initially, it's just they did a stupid version of it, was they would have, the key points to the game. So they'd have the 4 things. You've got to keep Michael Jordan on the perimeter, watch out for zone defense. There would be the 4 things that you had to watch in the game. Now, obviously, those are for the most casual viewer, but that's exactly the premise of it. If you remember, they used to have it on the initial LCS when it launched. Like, as long as you do it right, stuff like that is actually very good, because it doesn't take 20 minutes. You don't waste everyone's time with the real analysis, but you just put in simple info out there that the guy who, for the rest of it's all just a foreign language to him, he can pick up on that and enjoy the game.
Yeah, and I think the question here about LPL is super interesting, because when
I'll see if I can find this post. What was it called?
The ESPN one? Here, I'll just link it to you.
Yeah, do that just so I can check it while you're talking.
Yeah. So I'll link it in chat too for people to look at, I guess. So no one can listen to me while I'm actually talking here.
Oh, right, you meant a real sports. I thought you meant it was someone from ESPN Esports. And
no.
This is actually that's interesting then. Okay, keep going.
So the point here is, when we looked at the start of Korean dominance and when we started seeing a lot of people watching what was called Champions then in Korea, which was, remember, this was before Korea had ever won a world championship in 2013. I think one of the big failings in the LPL broadcast right now from an English perspective is that the stories aren't being told super effectively, and that it's the barrier to entry on a team or on a league with so many teams and so many players is super high. And I think what you have to do is really narrow down to a few star players and then hype the ever-loving shit out of those players and those matches, because that's the gateway drug to one of these leagues, right? And the way that we did it really effectively in Korea when I was broadcasting was, you'll notice we didn't start by just talking about every single team. It was like Mad Life, then Faker. We were really laser focused as a broadcast on certain star players. And the other thing you have to do is start giving these players identities. And this is another thing that StarCraft Brood War was so like devastatingly effective at, was that they had things like Bonjois, or they had things like the Protoss Dragons. They would start to come up with names. It's like what we did very intentionally, calling like the Immortal Score and everything like that, where we start to build up player identities to bring hype to the fans when they watch these particular players. And I really think LPL has like a marketing problem more than anything else, because there shouldn't be a reason why this league is spoken about less than Champions, right? Coming up with the last 2 world championship wins. It's a very weird problem to have.
I mean, I will say, though, the problem at the moment that we have with LCK and LPL is, in terms of the gameplay and, in fact, where the meta is, right now, LPL is what LCK used to be. But the issue isn't, I don't think, just that, like, the hipsters watched LCK. Another problem is that there's a self-fulfilling prophecy with the LPL, which is that because it isn't very highly viewed by the Western audience, it never retains the best talent it gets. They go off and get jobs elsewhere. And so it's always got a turnover. So right now, even though technically he's actually not doing it at the moment, you can't compare, like, an LS broadcast of LCK with insert anyone for LPL. LPL does not have anyone like LS. So like LS himself can bring in a kind of, people know his personality. Also, it brings his own audience. So like, I'm not saying you particularly, I'm just saying that's also one area where the LPL is behind. But obviously you need to level the rest up before you're going to get an LS who's going to work on the LPL. I've actually just read this thread now. The funny thing is, I actually disagree with a lot of the things this guy says. That's the bizarre thing.
No, I disagree with a lot of it too. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
As a general overview, one of the things I hate about this, it's obviously hyperbole, I just dislike heavily, is I have no basis based on this that this guy actually knows esports. So half the things he's suggesting that he thinks are straight fire, like, why aren't there more ex-pros? You know, in traditional sports, it's usually an ex-pro. You mean a 40-year-old man? You mean a 28-year-old man who already did loads of interviews and people saw he was knowledgeable, so they gave him some, or he was injured for a season and he came on and did that's nothing like having an 18-year-old kid. What are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make sense even, mate. But then there's the whole angle of, like, he also really does legitimately seem to think that ex-pros will be better analysts than actual analysts. And then also, as an aside, when he throws in that line about how, like, you don't bring on talk show guys because they'll make it a talk show, that's just nonsense. I mean, I don't know if you know, dude, you don't follow esports, but I've done like all the CS events and all the talk shows, and I'm pretty different on both of them. So I'm not dissing this guy. I'm just saying, like, that's an example where people will take his authority as someone for ESPN with a broadcasting career, and he's got points. Like, but so what I would do here is I would take each of the things he says and I would try and boil it down to a principle. Like, for example, like, one thing I do like that he mentions, here's an example where he gets it wrong, but his intention is correct. One of the things that made my career go from like an 8 out of 10 on the CSGO desks to, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10. Obviously, no one could really reach that. But in terms of what I've done as like a relative scale, is when I first started being an analyst in CSGO, I was actually one of the only ones. It was me, Richard Lewis. I don't even know if there was anyone else. Maybe like they'd have the odd pro would come on between games, but there weren't dedicated analysts in the way that like you've done it for Worlds example. So back at that point in time, we were all just a talking head, and you would go on a line and he would give his thoughts, I would give my thought, and the third person would give his thoughts. And if they're similar, so what? If they don't work off each other, so what? Now, because I already, like I do all my talk shows, had the ability to weave conversations in, like I could throw in my point that connected to what that guy said and then come in on something someone else was saying that could then elucidate something they were saying. I already started to figure out some of the concepts he's basically trying to explain here, which is desk balance. Because he's saying here, it just feels like you got the talking heads, like in the early example I'm giving of CSGO. So one of the things I did in CSGO that I've told the story of, but a lot of fans probably wouldn't know if they're in a different game, is we had a guy called Yanko who was an ex-pro, but a lower level ex-pro, and someone who was very, very knowledgeable, but because he was just becoming an analyst, his actual job before that wasn't ex-pro. He'd been the observer. He was just the guy who showed you the camera view of what's happening. So when he got his first chances on the analyst desk, and I noticed, like, this guy has way more tactical depth than he's ever giving on this broadcast because he's probably not confident. He doesn't want to step on our toes, and he just doesn't have the time for it. So why I even told him was, because this is back when you couldn't go and talk to production. They were all just overworked guys. There was no like production head overseeing things. It was just a bunch of people pressing buttons, basically. I just said to him, we can figure this out ourselves, mate. What I'll do is, I personally think people don't give the pick ban in Counter-Strike, just the map that you pick, enough attention. And I've always wanted that to have more attention. So how about this? I won't comment generally on the tactics, actually. And I'll just make most of my initial pre-game segment my analysis of what map they should pick or what streak they're on or why I think it was like psychologically the wrong pick to make. And then everything after that, you just go wherever you want tactically. And I'm not claiming it like I then made him do it. I was just opening the door, obviously. He then became the number one analyst in CSGO. And as a result, I'll just put it out there now. One of the reasons I will always be hired for the big CSGO events with the people I work with is because nobody does what I do on a desk. So I always make a desk more balanced than it would be otherwise. Even if there's people who know more tactically than me or were ex-pros, they're not doing what I'm doing specifically. So I've basically done what this guy is talking about. But the problem is, because I'm one of the few people who's done it, I also know that his idea of like, why isn't there a guy who's a build guru? Like, mate, that literally wouldn't be interesting except like 1 out of 10 games. And it'd have to be LS, basically. Like, you might be able to craft someone else into that, but no one's made it their thing like I made doing the map veto my thing. So whoever starts doing that, I mean, Freaks tried to do it before, Mark Z tried to do it, I think, before. They tend to just do like one item they talk about because let's face it, most pros do the same build most games with most champions. That's one of the things that actually drives LS crazy. You build like armor pen on something where they're never going to build armor because they all just do the consensus build. So I know what he means. Like, essentially, if you boil his point down, he's saying let's balance the desktop, let's have different specialties, or even let's look for people who have those specialties. Like maybe there is a guy out there who's a wizard with all the maths like LS is, and you can bring him onto the LCS desk and you can say to him, a lot of fans were thinking this was the wrong build in the top lane. What do you think of that? And he can go over his segment. So I like some of his points. I just think because he probably doesn't know the space, like his actual suggestions usually aren't as good as the principle he's trying to elucidate.
Yeah, and also the other thing that I've run into with a lot of these traditional sports types is that their perception is skewed because what they think the audience wants is very different than what the audience actually wants. Like, for example...
Yeah, reminded the average NFL viewer is 50 years old.
Yes, so they're all boomers. First off. Second off, when they deliver things, for example, SportsCenter is one of ESPN's biggest shows. SportsCenter has failed. The concept of SportsCenter in esports has failed like a dozen times right now. So they're thinking to themselves, the audience wants very like quick highlights. They don't want depth. They just want to sit there and be entertained by a series of highlights. And like
I even throw in as well, Monty, remember Sports Center, because in England we had the same thing where we review all the sports. That comes from an era where you're a captive audience. You've only got like 5 channels, so you have to watch this channel. And you're not going. In the modern day, you go to what you want. Yes. You don't sit there and wait for it all to be delivered and go, well, I don't like this, but I'll sit here for another hour. That's what happened in our youth, believe it or not. We didn't have Netflix to scroll through and then go, actually, there's nothing to watch. But we didn't have that, boys.
Most of the time, once traditional sports people get acclimated to the esports environment, they are actually very impressed that the most popular content is hyper deep, multi-hour long content like this show. I mean,
if you notice, he sort of gives that away here. He betrays here his very surface level knowledge. But what you're talking about, when he repeatedly compliments Dash, because that's the thing that you've obviously mentioned recently, it's something I always said was one of the reasons I thought people like me and you should be in high positions, is you initially get gaslit like everyone into thinking, right? Esports is below sports, which is below all the other industries. And when we get to their level, we'll have to really level our stuff up. And in the meantime, what you find out is, listen, I've been in real television, by the way, guys. I've not only been on Inside the NBA, I've been in their studio. I've talked to the legendary people on that show. And I can tell you right now, the stuff I'm doing in CSGO is better than their show. And I'm not talking about like all the like 1 hour show they have. I don't ever have a show that long, obviously. I'm talking about like the ability to just freestyle, go around places, go from this topic to that topic, just invent new things, react to things. Like, they have to have a lot more prep for some of the things they're going to do. They come up with the jokes before, they come up with some of those things, and they have it all prepared. So actual TV people who come into esports, immediately their mind is blown, where, for example, Richard Lewis never used a teleprompter on E-League.
Yes.
They would literally be like, where is the teleprompter hidden? Because all of them are using a teleprompter.
Yes.
In fact, that's why they have that gaze that never moves. They're just reading off a teleprompter. They're just good enough at it. It's far enough away that you don't notice their eyes going like that because they're not looking at a page like that. So, like, yeah, people would really underestimate because they still think esports is small time. We are in some areas. In other areas, we're actually ahead of where sports is. In fact, I'll go ahead and predict something for you. I think in about 20 years, when all sports are just viewed on your computer, it will be people like us, maybe even literally us, who are doing things like the NFL, in my opinion. Yes. Or it'll be some nerd who's like us in the NFL world. It won't actually be some guy whose only qualification is, hi, I was a linebacker on the Steelers in the 90s. It's like, that ain't enough, mate. You've got to also be a straight fire analyst.
I will say, just as an aside, that I think Dennis Miller doing the NFL was like, if you actually go back and listen to it now, is actually the most similar thing to esports commentary that we've heard in traditional sports. And he was just way ahead of his time, as much as people hated him in the moment. But I think that one thing that I really believe about esports in general as a production is that we have a valuable skill that we've cultivated, which is the ability to speak unscripted and be entertaining and analytical for hours at a time, and to hold people's attention. Meanwhile, talent in traditional sports has, as you say, relied on teleprompters and writers as a crutch, which has actually stunted the growth of the commentators that they have. And when for example, I have had criticism by people who have been talent trainers at ESPN for decades, who teach sports journalism in universities now. And every time that I talk to one of these people, or an NFL producer who comes to consult on one of the shows that I'm working on, they are always incredibly impressed at our ability just to freewheel. And they say that this is absolutely insane that we can do it with such a small amount of support. But all it is thousands and thousands of hours of not having any support at all.
Practice.
Just practice. But
I'll give you an example. When Yamato Cannon in the spring split didn't have a job and he went into content creation, and actually the only person I can compare him to is Loco. Like, he was actually putting out a lot of videos. They never made it to Reddit because, just like Loco, by the way, there's a perfect analogy to show what I'm talking about. Loco, literally ex-pro, champion, coach, champion, broadcasts for years, all his content on Reddit downvoted because Loco is an idiot who doesn't know anything, said a gold member player who has never, not gold member like the third Austin Powers movie, like someone who's in gold, rather, gold dragons player. And then also Yamato Cannon, recently a coach, been to Worlds, beloved on the broadcast, all his content downvoted, all his VOD reviews downvoted, because again, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he just said this in draft that I don't agree with. So these guys, right, when Yamato Cannon wanted to be a content creator, he actually reached out to me. I believe he said this story publicly, so I'm not revealing any like inside baseball here. He reached out to me and basically asked me, like, can you give me some advice on like how you do it or what sort of things? So one of the things I did was I said, because obviously that's one of his questions that everyone always has, is like, how do you, like, when they try doing a video, right, like just a 10-minute video, like a Thorin's Thought style, they do it, and then they go like, how do you do it? Like you have to do so many takes, or you have to have all the cuts and stuff. Like, how do you just sit there and read it out? And I said, it's just practice, mate. There's no secret to it. You just keep doing it, and over time you get comfortable in the awkwardness, or you don't, like, a lot of people freak out when they make one mistake and then pause the video or redo the video. So one of the things I did was I said, to show you this, I'll send you a script. I just sent him the notes for a Thorin's Thoughts, like a recent one I'd done. And the whole point of sending it wasn't that he was going to find like some formula. It was the opposite. It's that he was going to see that I would put like total topic heading, and then it'd have like one word like reckless laning, nemesis, passivity. And then the idea was, I already know what I'm going to talk about. Yes. So that just anchors me to where I'm going. So the point I was making, which I showed him basically, was like, it's just about getting comfortable with it. That's the main skill, I would say.
Yeah, and also people. This is a complete aside that we don't have time to talk about because we're already over. We should get Zeyzal on the show.
All right.
But in general, the human memory and the ability to improvise at length eloquently is simply something that has been forgotten, especially with the dawn of writing and record keeping. By the way, remember that Homer was literally composing poems that would take dozens of hours to recite with the Iliad and the Odyssey, and that was an orally transmitted story, and there are certain ways you can do it. by creating tropes that fit in a poetic system, right? So like Wine Dark Sea that you frequently see in the Odyssey, to kind of hold it together and be descriptive without having to perfectly memorize something. You just kind of have a bag of metaphors that you go to pull out. But if people can remember that, guys, and people can freestyle do oral tradition storytellings, which, by the way, was the vast majority of human history, right? Writing has not existed for that long. So use your brain that you evolved to use these skills. These are fundamental human skills.
I'm guessing there's a lot of people who are probably familiar in the modern day with who Terence McKenna is. All those talks are unscripted. He is just off the top of his head freestyling, like basically it feels like his entire knowledge about like literature, occult history, psychedelic drugs, pharmacology. And the whole point is he's not a hyper mega genius polymath. He's a guy who just did that so much. He used to say when he was in like, I think Berkeley or something, back in the day in like the 70s or something, he said that's just what people would do. You would just sit in dorm rooms. Remember, this is not when people were watching television all the time. And people would just talk and freestyle and have salons basically where you discuss stuff. Because what you're saying is correct, is the brain, what it's capable of is based on tens of thousands of years, not the last 200.
Yes.
So another area a lot of people wouldn't understand, and this is a real thing, you can go and look it up, is right now, everyone makes the mistake of thinking technology is part of them. It isn't. It is explicitly not part of you. And so when you use a calculator, you are ensuring your brain will never understand how to do things. That, by the way, this is what you can go and look up. If you go back in time, 100 or 150 years, there were literal commoners with basic literacy who could do mathematics in their mind that everyone watching this call almost certainly could not do and would need a calculator for. But the point is they'd just been taught to do it, probably by their parents and people in their craft, and they just learned how to do it. Like, for example, in the trades, people used to be able to do all sorts of equations, simple things, without ever needing a calculator because they didn't have a calculator. So back then, it was just understood how to do all these things very simply. So anyway, to go back to the LCS example, another thing I think this guy doesn't get, this is where you know he doesn't know esports deep, because otherwise he would have made some of these points, is he thinks, just based on the premise of his comments, he thinks this is the best we've got. Homie, you're watching the LCS broadcast. If you haven't been watching our shows or listening to any of my videos recently, they explicitly don't hire the best people. All the people you want to do those things. It'd be nice if there was a guy who's a build expert. There is. He's literally one of the most famous people in the entire world right now in League of Legends. Riot will never hire him. And they tried to fire him from Riot Korea. Oops, did I say that out loud? Oh, that's right. Companies don't actually support moral values and things they promote on Twitter. They just do it when it's in countries where that gets them money. I think that's the end of the segment.
Well, we'll take a break, guys, and we'll bring back Zeyzal in just a moment on that note. All right, welcome back to Zeyzal. No more discussion of Homer or the Odyssey for now. Maybe we'll bring up the Iliad, maybe we'll bring up some Trojan horses. Zeyzal generously joining us after a tough week for EG, where you guys lost some extremely close games, unfortunately. What happened this last week? How are things going for you guys over in the EG camp?
So I guess I'll start off by saying we haven't been doing the best in general for the past 3 weeks. We felt a bit off as a team. So we still have been able to get some wins in those 3 weeks, but it's those are wins that should have been easy for a strong team. And just in general, we haven't really been translating our performance from scrims to stage, and also our scrim performance has also dropped off, so we're just kind of I guess in a rut right now.
The thing that's confusing to me is, you guys actually wrecked me completely, because on the last show I did that was about LCS, I actually said, even though the record was bad, that I thought low-key you guys were the second best team in the league, so cheers for that, mate. But no, the reason why I said it, though, actually still holds, which is every time you actually win a game, it looks super dominant. Like, aside from Cloud9, you're the guys who style on people the hardest, but then you have these weird losses out of nowhere.
So that's something I actually had a big problem with, is our quality of wins is really high when we're ahead early game. But the issue is, aside from this week, we actually had a big lead versus CLG, but through that. But that's a one-of game. Our quality of wins is generally very high when we're ahead in the early game. It's just, our quality of losses is the most disgusting thing I can imagine. It's
To be
We're
fair,
just scripting them whatever we can.
Yeah.
To be fair, the way you guys play League of Legends does contribute to this, because obviously when you guys are getting those big leads in the early game, you're one of the best teams at creating whole map pressure and then just shutting down the game. Your split push
It's also
macro.
kind of Jiizuke's career. Like, that's just what he does. He plays the champions that just snowball, and then he just goes and roams and just gets a billion kills. Like, that's Jiizuke, you know?
But I do think, like, it's very hard to play your style when you are behind, right? It becomes a much more difficult proposition if you're not playing well and starting to push your advantages in the early game to then translate that pressure into the side lanes on the map. So it's kind of a function of the way you guys like to play.
Yeah, it just ends up making us feel a bit one-dimensional, I think, when we're incapable of specifically doing that playstyle when behind, but also we don't change playstyle when behind. Because, as you said, that playstyle just doesn't function when you're behind. So oftentimes, and our goal has been to kind of shift as soon as we feel we're behind a significant amount to play for power spikes, but we just can't seem to reliably ingrain that in our play.
What is it? And well, the one thing I have to ask about then is, like, when you're ahead, because here's the weird thing. If people don't understand why that's weird, because that might actually seem obvious to a very casual fan, like, yeah, but if you're ahead by a lot, you know, it's easy to win, and then if you're behind, it's hard to know what to do. It's like, no, actually, that doesn't make sense at all. A team that normally doesn't know what to do when behind would also struggle to close out games. Like, they would get a lead and throw it away. I think at TSM last split, like, they had a ton of leads that they never did anything with. So it's not the case, you know, that you usually have such a contrast. So when you're ahead, is there something about the way you communicate? Like, how come people always seem to understand what the next thing to do is? Because when you're behind, it's a similar concept. It's obviously inverted. So is there a shot calling issue when you're behind or something? Or do people have a different vision of the game?
So in general, when you're ahead, there's something basically where you do, we refer to it as minimum resource. And there's overload and minimum, right? So we have a problem where we always do minimum. And that makes our wins look very dominant. And then when we lose and we're trying to do minimum resources, we're just weaker when we're doing, like, let's say there's a dragon on the map and we want to hold side pressure at the same time. So we only have our three-man stack mid contesting the dragon. And it's like, well, they have 4 people here because they're sacking one side because they're not doing minimum. So they're just overloading on mid and we're trying to contest a dragon. So the obvious result is if we're weaker, we just have to give. And then what ends up happening is our side lanes are then also pushing up. So then it's very easy for them to counterplay by killing our mid 3-man or side lane, which is generally what happens. They will kill a side because we're pushed up. But we can't really, I think, shift perfectly from our minimum resources. And we don't really understand when we need to divert more resources. I wouldn't say it's shot calling as much as our natural instinct is to play minimum, and it's something we've been working on.
Okay, that's interesting. I like that model, though.
Yeah.
Then maybe we can talk about some other teams using that model.
Yeah, I also think that when you guys discuss this model of playing, it's even harder for you because if you're selecting these kind of strong split push champions, right? If you guys are playing like you did this week with the Echo and the LeBlanc, it is more difficult to successfully team fight into champions that can control objectives like a Zir very effectively because you're basically playing a perimeter and trying to poke them out or split them up. So it's not only that I think you guys are playing with fewer resources, you're playing a more difficult style into those objectives where you have to play really patiently, where you're having to wait for them to miss position so you can come in and poke them, rather than something a bit more traditional like other teams might play that just gives you inherently stronger zone and objective control. So I think it's kind of even more devastating sometimes with that if you guys aren't used to really playing slow around some of these objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. That, like, their mid is almost always going to be a control mage, and they're almost always going to sacrifice their side to be, like, set up in the zone first. So specifically, like, dragons, you're trying to enter against, like, an Azir, it becomes really difficult. So it's definitely something we've acknowledged that comes from both how we play and draft.
Isn't that also something probably to bring up as well, right? Is that at the current meta, particularly in the mid lane, like, let's just be real. Like, Jiizuke as a player is not your typical control mage player. He's not a guy who just holds the midsection, is he? So, like, to be fair, it's also like you are having to play somewhat counter to what the most hardcore version of the meta is right now and find success around that, right? What would you say are the approaches to, like, do you have to put different champions on different parts of the map to make up for the fact that he's not just playing a mid that wave clears or whatever?
So, best example would be when you contest a dragon with a control mage. It's basically whoever gets first setup will hold that setup, right? Because they're ranged mage. So it's really easy for them to play that style. But then an example would be if we have something like with the Blanc, it's not actually an issue. If you have first setup with the Blanc, she actually functions better than most control mages since she can just come out of fog and one-shot someone. But an example would be like with Echo, it's a bit more difficult to hold a setup, and then that also contributes to why it might be difficult to do one of the main win conditions on this kind of season, which is Dragon
Yes.
Soul. So yeah, I would say it makes it harder specifically to stack Dragon Soul when we're focusing on more winning through side, but also by winning through side we're changing our draft to not have control mages.
I think
the only thing is, though, I have one more question related to the mid lane draft. I realize you're not a mid laner, but you must answer for Jiizuke or your coach's crimes, I'm afraid. So listen, here's the thing. Obviously, I was someone who thought when they put him on a Zay, like, that's just not Jiizuke. Like, in this particular world and this particular meta, like, it's just not the champion you want him on. But with that said, mate, that Kog'Maw, what else was there? There was another one I'm thinking of, Karma, like... I want to ask you a question, right? People always go with that angle of like, maybe the player asked for that. I'll ask you then. Did Jiizuke ask for these champions? Did he want these champions?
I've actually heard you say this, but actually he did ask for both Kog'Maw and
Okay.
Karma.
All right, well, we've gotten to the bottom of it.
You're right about the Azir.
Someone
Azir
needs to
oftentimes
talk to him.
a coach pick.
You know what? I'll give you the obvious example, Zeyzal. You know when you're a little kid and you're like, oh, but Billy wants to do that. You're like, well, if you said we would jump off a cliff, would you do it? Like, you need the guy who comes in who's the mom there, who goes, just because he says he wants to do it, he shouldn't do it. Like, that's the problem. If he said it, fair enough. He takes some of the blame for that. But whoever let him get those picks as well. I mean, maybe in scrims, did he used to do something crazy in scrims with him or something? Was there a good reason for it?
So
was he winging it?
That week, the beginning of the week, the Kog'Maw was looking pretty good in scrims.
Okay.
But I also think the way he plays control mages when ahead is pretty reflective of Jiizuke in general. He kind of just takes over the game and does some insane stuff. So it's not like control mages look bad for Jiizuke. He's actually quite good at those champs. And our
maybe not on your team.
Is also the same. Oh wait, repeat that. Sorry.
Just maybe not in your team. Because here's the thing, like, put it this way, mate. I've seen him in Europe play some of the control mages. Obviously, yeah, it's just that. You obviously he was on a different team, wasn't he? You have different teammates as well. The pick isn't just for you, is it? Let's be real.
Yeah, so I guess that's a pretty big factor. I mean, my feeling is more so that I think it's easier for a control mage to kill people in scrims because people play like idiots. That's the reality. So he's often playing from a position where he's ahead, off taking like super aggressive play, and then on stage, we go in and like he ends up slightly behind. The Kog'Maw game, he TP'd top. The Karma game, I don't know what happened, but we ended up behind. But basically,
that was literally Karma for his picks. So anyway, no, here's the thing. I just want to say one thing about this, right? Which is basically this is. I've actually forgotten my point there. Whatever, keep going.
Well, so, I think like when it comes to control mages and scrims, what's interesting is that
it was the scrims thing. Yeah, keep going.
If you do get ahead with a control mage and a scrim, like you're saying, people are much more likely to contest objectives. So in a hype, because they're testing limits, right? Or they're trying to see, okay, can we with this composition from this position successfully fight this Baron or successfully fight this Dragon? So what happens is there's a Fed Azir on the enemy team. He's got sand soldiers in the chokes, and you're walking in there anyway, thinking that you're going to be able. You're just like, well, can I take this Dragon? It's just a scrim, right? So people just won't do that, like you're saying in non-scrim games.
By the way, what you're mentioning now is like, I was getting mildly triggered there because like people would think this is hyperbole, but what I'm about to say is an actual fact. Me and Monty have now had to sit for like 7 years or something while people tell us like, Well, scrims are basically not even anything like an LCS match, actually. And people are just doing weird stuff that they never do in matches and going super ham, balls deep on every play. And it works out or it doesn't. And then in the LCS match, believe it or not, they don't do that. And then we're just like, how many more years, God? Like, reset the clock. Reset the clock again. Like, why is the clock always on 0? Why is it never? Do we ever make process? Is this some sort of, like, purgatory? Is esports proof that this dimension is purgatory? What is this?
So I think it's just certain players like to play more aggressive. So for my feeling, it's our solo lanes. Generally, like, Svenskeren, Bang, and I are very reliable in scrims and on stage. We try to play intelligently. But I do think that we do make more of those 5-0 soldiers just stroll through the choke and see what happens plays in scrims than we do on stage.
Which is totally reasonable.
Yeah, it's like we do it with some logic. We'll like have
we
some
can test it out. Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I think it's definitely a case where, like I've said, I opened with we've had trouble translating our performance from scrims to stage, but what I actually mean isn't our skill level, it's more our level of aggression is actually much different. So then our playstyle is just like significantly worse on stage because the core aspects of it are the aggression of both, which probably people wouldn't expect, but Kumo is very aggressive in scrims. I swear, I've never seen so many solo kills in the top lane. But then on stage, it's just always the top lanes are even. But it's so weird because in scrims, it's like one top laner has to solo kill the other in our scrims. And it's like just back and forth. But yeah, I think
they're just bored up there.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are maniacs. But that is like core to our playstyle, but we don't translate it very well. And I think that a lot of that comes from the lack of aggression we have. And maybe it is a bit like our aggression has lost this game, so they feel hesitant to do it. But it's something that's become an identity for us.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's like that old saying, isn't it? Like, you've got to, like, go with the one that got you to the dance. Like, whatever your strengths are, you've got to stick with them, haven't you? There's no point going away from it. And then, because at that point in time, you're just trying to be a different team. And it's not the way you practice. That's the key thing I think you've nailed there, which is like, there's like a million sports quotes that all work for this, but people in esports just don't know sports. Like, there's a load of quotes that are like, the way you practice is the way you will play. Well, the point is, if you then try to play the way you didn't practice, there's gonna be an obvious disconnect there. You're not gonna feel comfortable. You're not gonna execute it properly. The fact that it's working in scrims, by the way, also implies it would work on stage to some degree. Not in every case, but this one sounds like one that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's something I've really been focusing on, is just trying to ensure the way we play in scrims reflects the way we want to play on stage. So if we're actually playing the aggressive style in scrims, I want to emulate that the best we can.
Well, I would say that you guys did, while it may not be clicking yet, we definitely saw more of that this week. Yeah. So, I mean, you're laughing, but seriously.
By the way, also, let's be real. Listen, let's not do that thing where it's like a loss is a loss and a win is a win. Like, obviously, there's gradations of how well you play. Like, you can play very well in a loss, or you can win in a game that wasn't even good. I don't even take that Golden Guardians game, mate, and think you should take that as like a serious loss in like the traditional sense. Like, that was just that guy closer absolutely styling on everyone. Like, that could happen to a lot of teams in LCS right now, in my opinion.
It also wasn't Svenskeren's fault. I think it's just like the factor of playing Trundle in that matchup in that way. Yeah, what's he supposed to do? He just getting kicked in every single time. And yes, Closer had an insane series of mechanical plays, but also with the composition that you guys had, there was not much counterplay to Closer repeatedly kicking you in. Because if you went and tried to pick him up as Tom Genji, you both get kicked in. So what was he supposed to do? Like,
so interesting. That was kind of our feeling. Like, that game was just unfortunate. Like, it just felt really shitty to play. But honestly, I would agree, the CLG loss kind of...
That one was
felt
bad.
Significantly worse.
One was bad.
We were in full control of the game. We just lost. We had champions we wanted. Like, I don't know how much you guys know about Kumo, but this guy was literally a Riven one trick, right? I don't know if you guys know this. So he's really good at Riven.
Yeah.
So, and then we have Jiizuke Echo. So we have our super good Riven player and our super good Echo player on their best champs, and pretty much the game is going perfect. They're both ahead in side lane, and then go 10 minutes later from up 5k, we're suddenly at our Nexus, and they have, what was it, Ocean Soul, Baron buff, Elder, and we're just losing the game.
Yeah, that's one of those weird ones again, where unfortunately, like the context of history isn't available to people in the moment. Because there's an example of what I was talking about earlier. Actually, like Echo is absolutely a Jiizuke champion in his career. If you go and look, like it's one of his like specializations. It's just that at the moment it just doesn't work that well for your team when you've done it, at least in the LCS matches.
I'm curious too, because we've definitely had issues with that. Like, so Jiizuke basically doesn't really care about draft, but when he doesn't really care about draft in the traditional sense that he doesn't care if his champions are meta, right? He'll play what he feels are strong. So
it's like Power of Evil in that sense.
He's very, very confident in his counter picks. And Echo, for example, was something. As soon as they drafted the way they did, he was pretty much like calling for Echo heavily. So it's something we have a lot of trust in him in. So it's not really like a big deal that we're playing Echo, but I feel more. It has to be successful in that scenario if it's going to be viable. And I feel like it had to be. He was 3 levels up on his lane. So it's not like it was weak in the game at all. We just made a lot of mistakes.
Well, I also think... No, wait.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I want to tie it to something you said earlier, which I find very interesting, which is that you feel like when you're behind, or even when you're ahead, that you're spreading your resources out very thinly just to maximize your advantage, right? And you're not really adapting. Well, one thing, to go back to kind of the LeBlanc Echo example, and you mentioned like one of the strengths of LeBlanc is that she can't just pop out of Fog of War and, pick somebody off. The thing about Echo is that you always want to be played into as Echo, which if you're not setting up on an objective first, because what you want them to do is to walk into you with the W, right? It's not the same thing as LeBlanc where you can sort of skirt around the outside of an objective and be as effective. Like, it's always better to have priority over an objective if you are the Echo player. So if you guys are having trouble with these kind of objective setups in these situations, don't you think the Echo is kind of a difficult pick for you guys, even if he is very individually good at it to play? Because you're often trying to be the one who is you are the one who's trying to like get yourself into the river to contest a dragon rather than the one who's like sitting at the mouth of the dragon pit.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult part of playing Echo for sure. It's like if we're not ahead as the 3-man, it's very hard for him to get in position to flank. So it's very hard for him to team fight then. And in the CLG game, we weren't actually ahead as the 3-man. So it was a very difficult task for him to team fight. And that's something we acknowledged, but also like that's why we picked it, is because he wins his side lane so hard. He really likes, just in general, when he can win side lane, to play Echo. And that's how he tends to play it, through side lane almost entirely.
This ties into my question, actually, which is basically, it's a general question, but specifically in this case for your team, and you can just tell us how much you know about how this is done. One of these areas, what Monty just said there, basically, is what I would actually want if I was a coach, my players to do in the pregame. I would want each of them that's on, like, especially if it's like a non-meta pick, like it's not a Zay that everyone's played with and against a million times. If they're playing something of a niche pick, and presumably they're playing it, in this case, like a specialist like Jiizuke, because he understands things about the champion and how it's going to work, or Power of Evil, that it won't actually. The other person just plays it because it's meta. I would want them to give like a couple of simple guidelines to like certain teammates, like in the game, watch out, because when I do this, I need to fight. In this case, Monty might say, yeah, we need them to come into me into the fight. Like I can't go out there, so you can't expect me to engage, simple thing. Do people actually do that in the team? Is that a thing?
So I think there's a few examples. An example would be if I play, this one's going to sound underwhelming, but if I play Yuumi, I will give instruction like, I'm going to need mid-jungle to push, because if their mid-jungle can push, they can dive bottom. Because we're playing Yuumi, we're basically the easiest dive in the game. But I would say it's not, and there's a lot of matchups like Renekton and top, for example. You're like, I'm going to need you guys to push mid and dive top on the third wave. That stuff is pretty standard, but I wouldn't say it actually happens less often on non-meta picks, I would say.
Right. Because even on
or what?
Even to give an example for a really meta pick, one of the things I found really disappointing was, in spring when everyone was crying, I was among them. We were all just like, "What even does this Aphelios champion do? Like, I can't figure it out." Like, here's what killed me. It's one thing if me and Monty are saying that. It's one thing if someone who's a support player is saying that. It's one thing if someone who's just a fan saying that. But what I don't get is this. Why didn't the Aphelios players tell their teammates what it does? Like, dude, there was players who played with really good Aphelios who were going, I can't even figure out what the gun does. It's like, turn to the guy next to you in Cheetos and ask him what what the hints are, like what the clue is, or maybe here's a crazy idea. Have like a verbal cue that he gives, Like that's why LS had that straight fire clip. I don't know if you saw this, Monty. There's a clip LS did where when he was casting LCK to make fun of the fact that Aphelios has so much ridiculous stuff crammed into his kit, he would just, as he casted, go, and now he switches to Caitlyn's, like whatever. Oh, now he's Jinx. It's like but what's funny is, by the way, when he explains that, that's exactly why I said on Twitter ages ago, that's actually the value people like LS bring. Because the mnemonics and the things he's building up, that once you know what his terms mean, you just connect to the idea instantly. Like, I think more pros need to like bring this in. I know I'm essentially asking pros to coach their teammates, but you can see how in some of these cases, like, it would just keep people on the same page as to what the win conditions are. Because if you just think, oh, I've watched a million games of someone playing Echo, it's probably not the way Jiizuke is going to play it, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think definitely when there's something that's misunderstood, it's generally going to be easier to understand it from one of your teammates than from a coach. I mean, going through the coach is good if it's like an immediate thing where the coach already knows, but a lot of the time with things like Jiizuke Echo, I guarantee he knows what he's doing better than any coach, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's like, why bother going through the coach when he can just speak directly? Jiizuke's actually pretty direct in general. Like, he likes player-to-player feedback a lot more. So I would say that the main thing with him is that he's not really the type to over-explain. He's very just direct, and he's not going to give a lot of information. He's just going to kind of play the game off feeling. And a lot of the time, I think he doesn't even know... Like, he just plays almost entirely off feeling, I guess, as a player.
No, listen, like that's one of those areas where, just to summarize like that little topic you were talking about there, one thing I would just say is this. I've often made fun of it, and I do it in a joking manner for entertainment, but there's a point to it as well. Whenever people do, like, I'll give you an example. Back in the day when Jack used to do those really good team fight breakdowns, because obviously there's a million things happening in the team fight, and half the time you don't even see, like, the ability that your support did, or the fact that someone, like, cancelled an auto attack and then let them get an extra spell. Like, you don't notice the minor things like that, right? So while it was good that he was slowing it down and showing the abilities, it's actually more of a common thing you see now, like clips posted like this where you see the ability. One area that people who break those down always fall into this trap, Monty, I'm sure you can confirm this, is they always, because they're going frame by frame and looking at stuff, they always assign like conscious decisions to the player that he could never be making. Like, he would literally need to be like Neo in the Matrix, like them, frame by frame, going like, what I'll do is parry his blow and then dip under, and then like, he's not doing any of that. He's trained so much that his instinct is to do that. Yeah. Exactly, because people always go way too deep on their explanations.
A lot of the time, what's going through the player's brain is like, I'll just press Q now.
It's like, oh shit, I'm about to die. I better fuck. Ooh, that was close. And then in his brain, it's like he calculated the distance and flashed over and said he didn't do it. I wish he did, but he didn't. I'm sorry. Even Faker doesn't do that. I'm telling you guys.
I definitely see a lot of clips like that for sure. It's like you look at an outplay on Reddit. I just go to Reddit in the morning and it's like, I don't know, some LPL or something outplay, and it's like, yeah, he just kind of stumbled into that for sure. Like, he's a damn good player, whoever it is. That's
the Reddit.
Good, but
yeah, dude, the Reddit version of that is where the fan does that, where he goes, what he should have done was cancel the third auto attack, step to the side a little bit. I'd have looked away from the Cassiopeia ult, turned and said, you wouldn't have done any of that. Like, you're in gold, dude. We're like 90% of us are in gold, silver, or bronze. Please stop this. We have to stop the madness.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of credit given to outplays when a lot of the time it's just like, you're kind of just playing off feeling, and it's not a lot of like, yeah, I'm going to predict what this guy's doing 5 seconds ahead of time before he even knows what he's doing.
What I appreciate about Reddit is that people assume that it's either some sort of god tier decision making that would actually be impossible, or that someone is just so fucking stupid that they completely messed something up or just forgot half their career's information in that one moment. So it's like Reddit either assumes you have like 50 IQ or 200 IQ, and there's like absolutely nothing in between.
Yeah, exactly. No, because dude, the worst thing is when you were saying that there, I was just thinking of when it's one thing if they do it for like just a random LCS player, like maybe someone who's never been in LCS. Dude, they'll be talking about how, like, why didn't the enemy AD carry just, like, dodge it? Like, dude, that's deft. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's, like, the fucking goat of that that position. What are you talking about? Like, I'm pretty sure he understands what you're talking about. He's playing a game though, isn't he? Like, he's not playing it at slow speed. He's not to react instantly.
It's definitely strange.
I do.
I've got a question for you though. Let's bring it back to EG, but like not just talk about the mid lane champion pool for 2 hours, right? One question I want to ask you about is, obviously, as the splits have gone on, one of the things I think everyone can see is actually it feels like Bang's gotten more and more effective in the LCS, because when he used to be on 100 Thieves, I think it was pretty underwhelming. I mean, he wasn't a bad team, but he himself wasn't. It's not like he was like
hold on. Was there ever a point in time where you didn't think Bang was underwhelming?
No, I'm talking about in the context of of being in the LCS, dude.
I know.
Like, when I said he wasn't the best AD carry, I wasn't saying he was like bottom half of the LCS, was I? My point was, in fact, I think people have done the usual thing they do, in my opinion, which is they take it and they just ignore what I've said. So at no point in time have I ever said Bang is a bad AD carry.
Sure.
I just said he wasn't ever the best AD carry in the world. I don't care what anyone says. And I personally always thought, since all the teams he won his championships on had hard carry top laners and Faker, that it's stupid to even act like he was a carry of the team. He was the tertiary carry on most of those teams, except when the meta ran through bot lane. Like if Lucian was in the meta, obviously that's just how you play around it. So yes, he would have amazing carry games. But even then, his carry games were like the consistent, basically the classical prototypical AD carry. You get to the team fight, you just do good damage, you play on the edge, you don't take lots of risks. He was never like Uzi where you go into the pack of people and do like the shit we were talking about before, the Matrix stuff where you're like doing backflips and slipping under bullets and like shooting a guy here and like flip. He was never doing that, was he? He was just doing a good job of being one. It's like when Loco Doco was a player. It's like, I used to tell him like, Loco at the time, that was when AD carry was the best, mate. Like you weren't the best. You just think you were because you won and AD carry was the best. So I'm not hating, but my point is when he was on 100 Thieves, I don't think he was activated the way he is in EG now at all. So even though the team's not in its best form, has something changed since you've played with him? Have you figured out how you're supposed to use Bang?
So yeah, I mean, I would say the description of Bang just being like the standard AD carry is really clear. Like how he wants to play the game is basically he wants to farm and play off lane priority, which is pretty standard. Do like the standard gameplay, and then he wants to hit his item spikes and fight on those. And it's like a really cut and dry like way he wants to play the game. Yeah, and that's how AD carries generally play. Like, there are exceptions, like Uzi's just tries to play off mechanics whenever he can, but... So, I would say he's always been very good. Like, even when I laned versus him on 100, I could tell Bang was still one of the best AD carries. Like, he was always good, but I think that certain teams have a harder time getting to those power spikes, right? Like, 100 wasn't doing well in any lane, really.
Yes.
So it's just hard for him to get to those item spikes. So in a way, I would say it's the thing that unlocks him is we have a strong mid laner especially, and a strong jungler. So we try to play mid jungle, and then that gives him a lot of freedom to scale up. And that's why you can often see like Bang doing super well in mid late game. Generally, if we get to mid late game with no disadvantage, we generally win the games just off how good he is in team fights, especially when he has items.
Do you have anything on this topic, Monty? Because I have another question along these lines if you want to go.
Yeah, I also think that it really helps Bang in this particular meta that either the AD carries are super strong, like Aphelios, or historically and currently one of his favorite carries is Ezreal. And the thing about the way you guys play is that Ezreal is really strong in 3v3 skirmishes or small skirmishes as opposed to team fights. So if you guys are splitting, then him playing Ezreal with a lot of single target damage and mobility makes him look really good because of your style. I would also say that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes your 3v3 pretty much untouchable. You can just disengage for free with Ezreal, or you can just you just win from distance. You just don't have to take any dumb fights.
One question I had was like, it's more of like it's a little bit of a complicated question, but I'll lay it out as simply as I can. I'll try to use examples as well. Basically, whenever people do that discussion, I always think in League anyway, we should really separate pro play and solo queue, because it makes half the discussions of like, is jungle too powerful? Just worthless. Because we don't know, are you talking about jungle fiddlesticks on the NA server, or am I talking about an LCK match between SK Telecom and DragonX? Like, to me, those are such different universes. It kind of makes the discussion, it just muddies it basically. It makes it not very interesting because people aren't being very clear. And then classically, it's a big problem in society that people have, but people in esports are really bad at it. They do what's called single factor analysis. They pick one variable and they just go off that. So when they talk about these roles, I mean, the craziest thing about League of Legends is in theory, there's only one role players actually on their own, which is top lane. And even then they interact with the jungler. Like mid lane, it's famously in competitive player, has so much to do with the jungler. And obviously bot lane is a duo role. But we still analyze these roles, like the champions that play on their own and the role as a solo lane. So one thing I want to ask about in terms of like team setups is if I look at the LCS right now, when they have champions that are super strong at AD carry, Aphelios last split being an obvious example, people cry, AD carry's overpowered. But the problem there is, in my opinion, if you wanted to prove AD carry's overpowered, you should go and find teams that their best players in AD carry, but even so, he's not the best AD carry, and let's say he's like the 4th or 5th, but their team's way better than they should be. Like maybe they, as a team, they're 4th or 5th. Like what? Like how are they doing that without those? That would kind of be like a bunch of factors all interacting to make your point. But in this case, when I look right now, most of the best bot lanes in LCS are at the top of the standings. One of the only bot lanes I think a lot of people have given credit to that isn't doing well is the Dig one. And that's because Dig as a team, aside from the bot lanes, basically been a dumpster fire. And to be fair, they're swapping players out and they're changing the lineup. So
and they're doing better now.
Sure. What I want to ask is this, Zeyzal, is if you have a good AD carry, a good bot lane, if you have the good picks, do you also need something else in the game before it can become like unlocked and it can carry the game? Like, do you have to have another laner that's good? Does the jungle have to do something? Is there other factors that are playing into this more than just, this champion was picked in the game?
So to answer that, I guess I would say when you unlock bot lane, the biggest part, the reason you can win the game early is because you unlock the support. The AD carry is still weak, but when you unlock bot lane, either from your 2v2 skill or, in this case, if you have the winning mid jungle, but basically you unlock the support, who then can just go mid and immediately get an advantage to your mid jungle. And then that just continually gets the AD carry smaller leads, because generally what you do to get leads in bot lane is not deny minions 2v2. It's, if you're winning 2v2, you're going to build waves and threaten dives. And the better teams will do it with mid jungle, because then they have no real counterplay other than like fighting your mid jungle 2v2, which if you're winning bot, which is part of why bot lane is so strong, you have your support move up first. So you can generally generate a number advantage while you also push bot lane. And no other lane can push and move at the same time, right? That's just not a thing when you have one champion. But I think bot lane is definitely always going to be one of the strongest roles just because of that. The exception is when Akali, Irelia, Aatrox had just like been that's the only time I feel like bot lane was not the strongest role when you combine the two roles.
By the way, Monty, just because this wasn't your era, it was when you were doing Overwatch still. That's actually one of those areas where, believe it or not, people just go too hard that you're either the genius that knows everything or a potato, because people always talk like Loco knows nothing about the game. Loco was the first person I ever heard actually make the quite astute and shrewd observation during the period he's talking about, basically like late season 8 to season 9 mainly, when they had those champions in the solo lanes that not only could be flexed so they were in like every bloody game, but they were also like insanely strong champions. Because those champions were champions where you had like low cooldowns and you can cycle through them constantly. It basically made it like nightmare mode trying to be an AD carry in a team fight, because you weren't just thinking, right, well, it's all right, the mid lane is going to dump his burst there, but if I dodge that and then I get to kill the... No, what you were thinking was like, well, wait a minute, when do I ever get my moment to shine and just kill all these people? Like, I can't just kite everyone on the whole map the whole time. So like that was the worst era. In my opinion, times in like that era, like season 9, maybe early on, I thought that was the worst time ever to play AD carry. I think that was the only time where it didn't matter what champion you had. Sometimes the game setup meant you couldn't have carried. Like you needed the rest of the team to do it basically.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There was no way. I mean, there was games where the AD carry somehow was in a position to carry, but even then they had to pretty much draft around these super insane threats. Like the meta was Kai'Sa Xayah, right? And these champs, one has a stealth and a mobility ult, the other has an ult that makes them invulnerable for a few seconds. It's like you had to draft entirely around the solo lane, so that also inherently made bot lane weaker. I'm not sure if it really would have changed anything if they were playing other champs and weren't dying instantly to Akali, Irelia, and Aatrox. But they just had to draft around it, and they weren't as strong. But I think aside from that, bot lane has always been really strong.
All right. Can we talk about some other teams?
I think it's funny that people are calling for the revival of some of these assassins in the meta now, or saying that the game is boring, because personally, I think the game is in a pretty fun state right now with a lot of versatility, and I don't really like watching people just get 100 to 0'd with no counterplay. So I'm not sure why people are pining for these days personally.
Oh, I don't listen, except for people who are mid laners or who are the fans of like Jensen or something like that. I don't understand people who want to watch competitive games that have champions like Akali in the game. Like, I hate that, because those champions only dominate the game or do nothing whatsoever.
Yes.
Like, there's no, that's why it's not fun to me. Like, there should be, like, I want champions like, I know this is like, it's going to drift into a meta conversation, so we won't go too deep on it, but like, yes, and there definitely should be specializations and counters and different ways to play the game. But I also like things that, like, I don't like things that are really strong but have one way to use them. I think that just makes for bad play, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of one-dimensional play that I'm usually frequently glad when it exits the meta of professional League of Legends.
Should we talk about some other teams?
Let's talk. Well, look, there's tons to talk about this week because there's been a bunch of stupid upsets. So
listen, Monty went on holiday. He already had the holiday planned, TSM fans. It's not our fault you won your games then and went 0-2 and got shit on and everyone's laughing in your face now. That's just a wonderful coincidence.
It just happens this way. I can't contain that TSM only does bad things when I have a chance to comment on it, you know?
All I'm saying is TSM now. I used to think Karma couldn't exist because they kept winning all those LCS championships. I mean, to be fair, they did just go to Worlds and get literally like a Cleveland schemer on their face every time. But aside from that was only one time a year. It only happened once a year, didn't it? So, but it almost feels like Karma's a real thing now, Monty, because first of all, Team Liquid, just everyone's like, they're overrated and not that good. It's like, still can't even help. They just literally open a door, wind just falls in. What the hell? They open the cupboard. Oh, wins again. I'm not even trying now. ASM's out there like, Double F's like, I'm so motivated. I'm thinking every day about them. I'm going to beat them. They're afraid of me. This town is afraid of me, Team Liquid. And then they go in the game and nothing happens. He's just getting his ass handed to him and bodied all over the place. Like, this is amazing. I'm loving it. Keep talking, please keep talking. Meanwhile, I'm looking around the org, trying to figure out, well, it can't just be the players. I wonder what the support staff, what the organization's like. And it's like, oh, it turns out the mailman's actually married to Reggie's aunt now, and fucking, you know, the intern, like, they won't fire him even though he never delivers any of the meals, just because he's been having a really good time playing frisbee with Lena. Like, give me a break. Like, can we just get a break here, please? Like, are you getting any wins anywhere? Any W's anywhere? No, just L's all day long. Except the week that Monty went on holiday, so we couldn't talk about it. That's a shame. To be fair, we could reference some of it now, I guess, if some of it was relevant.
I think you're just too hard on the poor website/streamer company there, Thorin. You're expecting them to actually field competitive esports rosters when they're just building the Blitz app and some PUBG guide sites. I mean, we can't expect too much. I think that's just unfair and unreasonable for them at this point in time. Not their primary goal. Let's put it that way. But to talk about
that ends the flaming TSM section of the show. As we said, it's a lot shorter than it used to be. It used to basically be a little spice we'd weave into everything in the show, like curry powder or something. But it's just a little one-off skit now. But actually, as a team, I want to talk about them because I do find them a very interesting team because they have this weird Jekyll and Hyde personality to them where every time I actually think, like, for real that they're bad and that they're going to really just go off the cliff, that's when they'll have the 2-0 week. And then I start going, oh, they haven't bloody got it together, have they? I'm going to have to actually start praising them. And then they just gave me a gift from the gods like this week. Like, oh, thank you so much. Like, Double F, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a big fan of your play right now, actually. Keep doing it, homie. Just keep giving me them results. Please. Please. No, and also, as usual, by the way, this is what I love about TSM. Unless everyone's going to turn on Spicker, which sadly I do think they will do eventually, the problem with recruiting all these players that are old school players that everyone loves and having Broken Blade, who's been the best player last split, is there's no one left to blame. Like, the whole thing of just shifting the blame to a player doesn't work anymore. It's clearly something about how they're playing the game. It isn't the players. Like, this lineup is way better than the results I've seen on some of the weeks this split. What do you think of TSM at the moment, Zeyzal?
So, I had a similar feeling. Like, generally when they'll have times when they look quite weak, and then I assume they're just not going to be very good. And then just the next week, they're a lot better. So it's interesting how they have just this up and down dynamic. I guess this week it's like, it's hard to say. They actually did pretty well versus Cloud9. I was pretty surprised. Like, they basically did something that a lot of teams struggle with, which is They got early objectives versus Cloud9, and then they broke their tier 1. It hasn't been as dominant this split, Cloud9's early game, but breaking mid-tier 1 should generally lead to the game being a lot more in their favor. They had a gold lead, they broke the mid-first turret, they had control of the game, so I think they definitely have some things going for them. Like, their early game doesn't seem to be bad at all, but then they had the game versus Immortals.
Oh, no. Let's take it one at a time.
Save that one.
So first up, this draft,
the Cloud9?
The Cloud9 TSM draft. So when we're actually looking at what happened in terms of the draft here, Cloud9 is clearly coming in looking to play the Mad Lions composition. So they played 2 blue side games this week, first off, to talk about Cloud9. Oh no, they played 1 red side game, excuse me.
But they first same Senna Wukong.
Yeah, they first picked Wukong both times. So their first 2 picks were always Wukong Senna. So it's clear that they came in saying, okay, we're going to switch up our style. And we know from talking to Cloud9 that their main goal this split is diversifying their style, and they don't really care if it gets them some losses. So they came in planning to do this both games. I think it's pretty clear. They were trying to do the thing that...
By the way, it's even more gangster if you then still barely ever lose any games. Like, even if it's just trash talk, it'd be amazing.
I don't know. Let me just take my perspective on C9 this week is they were like, come hell or high water, we're going Wukong Senna, because the second draft they did versus 100 Thieves doesn't make any sense unless that statement is true.
Right.
So if you believe that, which I do, you look at Cloud9 and you say, okay, they're picking Wukong. They've got this flex pick. Usually, I think the Wukong is stronger on the red side, which is what we saw in Mad Lions, because you always have that opportunity to last pick flex it into either role. So not in love with, the blue side Wukong first pick. Doesn't matter. They're trying to bait out the Varus pick, okay? They succeed in doing that, which if you're TSM, like, come on, watch some Mad Lions games. This is literally what this champion is designed to deal with when you put it into the bot lane position. And I'm going to be really enjoying your perspective on Wukong Senna in the bot lane in a minute. But you come in for C9 and you have so much control with this composition. You've got so much damage output with the Azir to make up for perhaps less damage coming in through the Senna. And then you've got the late game upgrades in the Ornn. Now, if you're TSM, okay, you get baited into the Varus pick. Again, would not have done that. I think it was a really obvious play. So they're clearly very confident about what they're going to be doing. Now, what confuses me here is that they take LeBlanc after seeing the Azir, the Wukong, and the Senna. Now, the issue is the Ornn's still on the table, right? You don't know that Wukong, and in fact, I would say it's even likely that the Wukong is not going into the top lane once you see the Senna and the Azir come out, right? And then you take the Ornn. And the issue with the Ornn is, if you're playing LeBlanc Varus, how in the late game do you actually kill anyone once the set and the Ornn are there? Because you're dealing with a burst mage. So either you have to get an insane advantage, which they did get a strong early game advantage. But as long as you're patient on C9, you will never kill the Ornn in this matchup. And you have to keep the Ornn down. And what ends up happening is that TSM, it's like they don't think about how they're going to win this game by snowballing, because they just allow the Mordekaiser to get completely shit on in the top lane. Ornn gets enormously powerful, and then he just stands there and takes all the LeBlanc and Varus poke, and there's nothing that they can do about it. And he's got all the Senna heals coming in onto him too. So like, I just don't see, you either have to attack the Ornn early in this draft. You can't just play to the bot lane like they did and expect to win, is my take.
Yeah, I mean, shutting down a Senna Wukong, it doesn't actually do anything. Like, Wukong still has his double knockup.
Yes.
Senna's not actually getting denied gold. Like, most of it comes from the support item anyway. I would agree that if I was doing this draft, and in the 4-5 I have... So the 1-2-3, Volibear, Varus, LeBlanc, I think that's fine. But in the 4-5, I would definitely look to ban Ornn. Because I agree, there's just not really a realistic way you can kill Ornn. And their counterpick to it, if they're not keeping, or if they're not going to send the Volibear top, being Mordekaiser feels even worse, because it looked like he didn't even win 1v1 in that game.
I mean, Broken Blade had a very bad week overall, but yes, yeah, he didn't win. He got put in the dumpster up in topside. Like, Licorice became a monster. Like, if you're going to run this comp, you need to keep the Ornn down and keep the Mordekaiser able to split push against the Ornn, because otherwise all Cloud9 has to do is group up. And then you just What are you going to do? Poke him with lethality Varus? It's not reasonable. You can't, and here's the thing, you can't play on-hit Varus here because the Wukong's going to fuck you up if you try and stay within range. Like, you're going to get hit by the Ornn ult, you're going to get hit by the Wukong. There's no way you're going to get prolonged attacks off, but you're also just not going to do damage with lethality Varus to a fed Ornn. So
I also think as well, like, this is another area where it's like a classic theme to bring up, but I do see it from TSM, is one of the areas I feel like Bjergsen has become so underwhelming as a player now. Like, he doesn't look like a top player to me anymore. I'm talking even just among mid laners. There's so many better mid laners right now. Is in the last few years, but especially this split, he picks which are his classic picks, LeBlanc, Syndra, something like that. But it's almost like he picks it as if he was a solo queue player. Like, well, that's just my pick, so I'm picking it. It's like, it doesn't necessarily make sense in the comp sometimes, or the way he uses it. Like, his Syndra, it isn't like the scary Syndra it was before. Like, maybe he just doesn't play the meta correct. I don't know, but like, if you have in theory one of your best players and you're handicapping yourself like that, like, it's starting to add up what the problems in TSM are. If you do this for a bunch of the players, the end of the equation is going to look bad.
My general feeling, I think Bjergsen's got a lot of strengths, and one of the ones playing a support, it's generally very hard to gank Bjergsen. Like, if I hover around mid, he's always stable. Generally, like, I think how
I
he
won't
plays
say the joke, like, it's because that like thing next to him just keeps hitting you when you come into
the ward,
whatever.
Yeah, the ward. No, he's honestly, like, even without his mid jungle or jungle support, he's pretty hard to gank, and I think he just plays very smart, and it feels pretty hard to punish him. It's not like that's too big a feat, but he's a very stable player, and he might not be the one to carry the games. Like, I mean, when he came in, what was it, like 2013 at this point? It was a long time ago, but he was definitely a level up on a lot of the mid laners here mechanically. So
he was doing what Jiizuke does on your team, basically.
Yeah, he could do that while playing safe, because he's just so much better, I think. But now he's like, people have caught up, and I think his playstyle is just very reliable, and I don't.
You know what I always love to do is no, it's not entirely, but the problem is it depends on what the balance of your team is and what you need from and what you're picking for, which is kind of the point I'm making. Because here's the thing: one of my ultimate revenges, Monty, is I just love to make this comparison. Bjergsen now is just what everyone told me Froggen was for the last 5 years.
It's true.
And guess what? Froggen was known to be ungankable. Guess why? Because he always plays fucking safe in the lane and just makes sure he gets the CS and doesn't risk kill pressure. Now, the problem with that is, go back in time, TSM fans, and get that old notepad out of the closet where you wrote down all the reasons Froggen sucks and then explain to me why Bjergsen doesn't suck for those reasons. Because it's the same shit. He's just a control mage player, except for the rare, odd, unique picks he has, like Zillion or something. He's just a guy who plays safe and just wins the lane, or barely. But that's the other problem as well. I have to throw that in as well. Here's the difference, Zeyzal, is if you won lane back in Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, just winning lane by 20 CS, that can do a lot in the game. Like, that could be like an item, that could do all sorts of shit. In the modern day, winning lane by 10 CS isn't really anything in this version of League of Legends without you have to rotate around the map. It doesn't mean anything. Like, that's like the old equation that Froggen told me many years ago of like 15 CS is a kill. That's not even vaguely true now. Like, the implied value of the kill or the map rotation is way more than 15 kills worth of CS versus gold.
Well, a lot of it too is that there are just simply more mechanisms for recovering CS gold. So there's turret plates, or there's bounties, right? There's more things, or you can you can fall behind, but if you get a Rift Herald and then you get multiple plates at the same time or kill a turret, well, you're right back into the game with that CS, which I think is a great thing about League of Legends, because it creates a more numerous variety of styles for teams to play on or for teams to go for. But I just think that the style of playing kind of a safe, reliable mid laner is inferior to two other styles of mid lane that could be played right now. And those styles are being fucking crazy and just like trying to go all in on people and destroy them in some sort of 1v1 or 2v2 in the mid lane, or alternatively, the Doenby style of just trying to leave and affect other places on the map and trying to exert a ton of pressure like Niski. Yeah. So I think those two styles are, pick one of those and it's much more interesting or much more easy to play the game in the current state, rather than just the dude who sits there in the mid lane calmly collecting gold. And sure, he might be hard to gank, but he's not gonna provide pressure.
I'll give you the example, because the best thing about the example, I'll use two current day players to elucidate what we're talking about here. This is the reason also, though, why players will always see things different than analysts. Because if you ask most people who watch the big regions who the best mid laner in the world is, they're going to say Knight from Top Esports, right? He is the player who will take over the whole game. And now, especially in this particular team, they encouraged him to not just be like a lane monster, but to like roam with the map. And obviously has a sick jungler in there as well now. So now he does just take over the map. And has so many highlights everywhere. But what's funny is if you ask Knight who his favorite player is and who the best mid laner is, he thinks like LS, it's Chovy, because he's thinking from when he in solo queue plays against Chovy and that Chovy's the best laner. So in his mind, that's why LS is so in love with that player. Like they're thinking of classical league where that was like an art form of itself. But I agree, like if you can just encourage a really skilled mid laner to affect the rest of the map or to just play super crazy and snowball the whole game. Right now in the game, you will win a lot of League of Legends games, I feel like.
I absolutely agree. That's the best way to play mid lane. I think that's just the best way to play League of Legends, and I think Cloud9 dominates our region. A good reason why is like they're so fluid around the map and they move around resources very well. And just in general, when you can move pieces around the map like with a lot less loss. So in general, the term tempo, it's like when you make a move, you lose your place on the map. You generally get pushed back a bit, and that's your tempo. So but Cloud9 tends to do it while holding tempo or gaining, which is pretty insane. And players like Doinby just know when they can sacrifice it to get a lead for their team. But then when you combine it with a player that's also a strong laner, an example would be like you're saying Knight now, pushes lane, moves in. He's also a strong laner, so it's a lot easier for him to get the push.
True.
On mid.
Well,
I do think...
I think like the two styles, just so people understand what we're talking about. So when I say like the kind of psycho style, what I'm referring to is more like Knight on top or Showmaker on Damwon. And when I'm talking about more of the sort of side lane effective styles, I'm talking more like Doinby last year on Fun Plus Phoenix. I know they're not doing very well right now, or Cloud9, right? So there's more of the mobile supportive mid laner or just the guy who's just going completely nuts on you in the mid lane.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually think on the previous topic of Bjergsen, I think his success, his team success, also heavily correlates to whether Bjergsen can move in the early game. I don't know if you guys have realized this. You probably have, but they dive top a lot. And their wins directly correlate with if they have a successful top lane dive in the early game. And so this is two parts, right? Bjergsen has to have a good timing to roam, and Broken Blade has to be pushing top. And I think that's part of why this draft, where they just like last picked the Mordekaiser into Ornn, they expected, I'd assume, Mordekaiser to win the lane and set up dives. But the opposite happened, and Mordekaiser's just losing Flash 1v1 and getting killed by the enemy team. So it's like, I don't think Bjergsen doesn't try to move. I think he actually tries to move, and they often have success off of it. But then when they don't, it seems like there's not much proactivity from them.
Well, it's also that we kind of have to question if that's your take on it, then when he plays champions like Zilean, is that really the best way to affect that strategy, right? Because I understand what they were trying to do with the Zilean in the second game that they played, and I think if they were
go back in time in 2018 when that one played. Oh, sorry, no, you went right now. Yeah, my bad.
Well, so like I don't dislike the comp that they ran simply because, okay, you're maximizing, let's say you're double lift and you have a Chakram Aphelios and you're dealing insane damage in a team fight. And as long as you can close the gap, even if he dies, he's just going to get rezzed with full health again and just start shooting out a bazillion Chakrams and doing AoE damage, right? So like, I think that it's not terrible in terms of a concept, but I do think that what we saw in this game was that it was very difficult to affect that strategy, because I don't think that putting Bjergsen, I don't think it's the right team to do that, because I think it limits their upside and it puts too many eggs into one basket, as it were.
Interestingly enough, like Bjergsen Zilean is pretty damn scary. Like,
oh no, I agree. Historically, like, it has been.
Not just historically, but even like, I mean, I lost to it multiple times, so I'm a bit biased, but Bjergsen Zilean, even like since I've been playing against him for the past 2 years, has always been scary to play against, and it's always been banned when you play against him for the past 2 years that I've played in this league. So
That's why it's a barometer
I
of
wonder
the
if
issues
it is the
having now.
point that you pointed out earlier, though, where he is just like picking champs he feels are strong, even if they're not necessarily setting up a composition for them. Because I agree, when I look at this composition, it's like
that was his pocket pick, of course. Yeah, it was classic for him. Yeah,
you go mid game and you're like, how do we win this game, guys? We have Trundle, Zillion, Tom Kinch, Aphelios. We have no hard CC in this 4-man. We have a Wukong knockup. How do we win? It's like,
well, Broken Blade also got super behind,
flank.
so he couldn't do anything.
Yeah, their only win condition, in my opinion, is like a dominating early game, which is fairly unlikely, or Wukong just being able to get really good flank angles. Other than that, it's like you speed up Aphelios and he runs at you, but you could just step back, or you just
I think
volley.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that when you're playing against this composition, they can wait out. Immortals just literally can wait out the Zillion ult because they're either Doublelift was to eat an Ash arrow to the face. I mean, you did get Scimitar eventually, right, to try and deal with some of the CC. But how do you deal with Threshold as you're running into it, plus Volley, plus Ash Ultimate, plus Smokescreen, plus, Corki disengage with Valkyrie, and you're just running into a bunch of potential poke damage as well, coming from like this triple AD carry composition. So I think Immortals played it well, and that they did a good job of kiting it and just simply refusing to engage when Doublelift had the Zillion ult up. Like, just wait it out, just walk away.
Oh, this is actually a point from earlier when you were talking about why didn't the AD carries just explain what Aphelios did. Bang was actually really angry about this, and he doesn't like. He was like, why do people just keep walking into Aphelios and then getting surprised when Aphelios just fucks you? Like, he was really really angry about this because we did it in our match versus who was that? Was that GGS? Yeah, it was GGS. We just ran at Aphelios and just had him hitting us while we're running at him, when we could just wait and play till our cooldowns are up. But Bang was really upset about this and like trying to explain, basically, if you don't go close to Aphelios, you just can essentially just play off your range skills and win, because Aphelios doesn't have that much to do when you're outside of his auto range. So I guess that's an example of that, but also I agree, that's like the flaw of this composition. If you just don't get in Aphelios' range, I don't see a win condition for TSM, really.
I also have my questions, actually, since we're bringing up the big names, about Doublelift's champion pool at the moment. Like, when I go and watch LCK and the other big regions, the best AD carries, listen, yes, they also play Aphelios and Kalista and the champions that people play now, but they pick Ashe when they can themselves. You don't see Doublelift do that now. They pick Ezreal all the time. Where are Doublelift's champions again? Like, where's the champion pool do? Like, this is not like the old school days where there's 3 AD carries and we just like agree to play whichever one they didn't pick. Like, you can play a lot of stuff now. As a bot laner, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Doublelift has a champion pool issue. I think it may just be their priorities are just on their priority in draft might be getting Doublelift on what he considers to be like the top 80 carry.
Seems to be
which might just end up, which might just, in his opinion, be Aphelios, whereas a lot of teams have different priorities on what they consider the top 80 carry. So it's like, right now, in LCK, there's often teams first picking Ezreal, right? I don't know how often it happens in LPL, but that's definitely an LCK thing, to first pick Ezreal even with Aphelios up. So for example, that's something we've done. We've shown we prioritize Ezreal over Aphelios. They do the opposite, where it seems like Aphelios over everything except Varus, as far as I can tell. So I definitely think Doublelift can play Ezreal. It would be more speaking to their priority in draft seems to be getting him on Aphelios, though. Which there has to be a reason for that, right?
Sure.
But I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that it's because he can't play Ezreal.
I'm just saying I want to see those champions.
I mean, historically, he's been very good at Ezreal, so...
Oh, in the old days, he used to be able to play all these champions, of course. I mean, different versions sometimes. No, the reason why I find it so underwhelming, though, Monty, is because one of the things that, I mean, it's partly because I've just seen it too often, too many years, so it frustrates me more now. But one of the things that frustrates me about when fans analyze teams is, first of all, they're already going into it so many times thinking, is there a way I can criticize the team that lost, but without talking about my favorite player being part of it? So that's already a problem in sports in general. But like, I also hate it where they then act like all the roles are equal and then criticize. Like, I've seen, like, the best examples like the NFL, Monty. Like, you can have a quarterback who has the box score that looks all right. I'm not saying good, it looks all right. Like, you know, he has 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he makes like a decent completion rate. And they just take that and go, well, it was this other player who messed it up. And then you look at the actual game and like all his throws missed the guy's hand. And like he actually messed up a bunch of the things that goes the drop for the receiver. You know what I mean? Like it's like that example. So I feel like the reason why I always criticize harsher the people who are the main stars and the carries is because they get all the credit when you win. So they should actually have to carry the same burden. Yeah. So if you're a mid lane or an AD carry, I'm sorry, the history of the game means I have to put some of the weight of the wins and losses on your shoulder. Not entirely.
Absolutely.
You can obviously get in like the Teddy Jenner scenario, but Doublelift isn't in that scenario. Now there's Bjergsen. Like the thing I think's interesting about TSM is the reason I donk on them is I actually think their roster's way better than these results.
Yes.
Like their roster should be second or third best in the league, but it isn't. And it isn't at the moment by, as we say, some weeks it is, but some weeks it just isn't by like a decent margin, it feels like. Are they a good team in scrims? Do they do well in scrims against you?
So like I was speaking previously, like the past 3 weeks, we've been doing worse, but I think before that, not really. They weren't anything special. But I think they're a very good scrim partner. They play reliably. Like they play a very set play style, so they're good scrim partners, that's for sure. Even if they're not like dominating us, and it's really 50-50, and they're a good team to scrim against. Some teams are just like, you scrim them and the quality of game's just garbage. It's a big problem, but I don't think they have it at all. It's quite the opposite.
I want to talk about some of the teams that have been doing significantly better the last week. And let's start with 100 Thieves, because they're 3-1, including the first victory over Cloud9 in the past 2 weeks of play. And this comes off of them having this completely new player, Poom, who wasn't even on anyone's radar 6 months ago and was in like the 100 Thieves Next, I guess, and then was in 100 Thieves Academy, and now has just replaced Stunt, which I'd love your take on Poom as a support player, but also contracts coming back in. And this team looks, even Ryoma has looked way better, I would say, overall this year. Even in the losses that were happening earlier this summer split, I think there were times like with his Azir when they were picking it for him every game that he was not the reason why they were losing. In fact, he was the reason why they were staying in a lot of these games to begin with. So what's your take on the current switches that have happened to the 100 Thieves roster?
So I actually pretty much when I play solo queue, the main person I play with these days is Contracts. Even before he was playing, I could feel he was really good again. And I'm friends with him, but I could tell there was a huge difference between his skill level just in the past like 6 months to what he is now. And he's got really good again, really fast, and that's quite impressive. So that definitely comes from like, I've spoke to him about it, and I was even telling him like, I think week 1 of LCS, I was like joking with him that he's going to get promoted if he keeps playing like this. So it's kind of funny that it happened, but I think that it's something that needs to happen more when a team is like, I guess, slumping, that they're willing to make changes that'll boost the team. Because I think when you're slumping, it's team morale is an issue too, and that affects your ability to get quality practice. And then players you think who have looked okay in the past might just look bad, like Ryoma, right? He's suddenly looking revitalized and doing well again. And I think part of that is their change from Contracts and Pume. It's just like, it's not necessarily that they're that much better. It's just like a new team environment and a new chance for him to show that he can succeed, I guess.
Well, you've been through this process on Cloud9 of like, you know, a bunch of swapping around between Academy and LCS. Was this the same thing that happened when it happened with you?
I have a feeling it's similar, where it's like, Meteos is definitely a good player, right? But and so was Svenskeren when we put Blabber in, but they just kind of changed the team environment, Contracts and Blabber. So they both changed the team environment, and then what everyone gets out of practice suddenly changes. How everyone goes into practice suddenly changes, which is a really big thing. You can get into a routine where what you get out of practice is almost nothing, but then when you add new elements to it, you can suddenly get so much more out of it, and I think that's what happened here.
Right, what about this? First things first, congrats to Contracts on the Olaf game. Was way better than when he was on Golden Guardians, light years better. This was more like the old Contracts that used to be on Cloud9 years ago. Poom also, I thought, generally had a pretty good week. But I've got to ask this. We can't act like in the win against Cloud9 and beat them. You yourself just said, Monty, Cloud9 wasn't the World Championship draft.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Okay.
So let's get into it. What do you think of this draft?
Let's get into it. First off, if you're gonna pick Wukong, Senna, you don't pick them both in the same rotation as your first rotation on red side. You want to at least like play a few games there, try and mind game them a little bit, especially when it was literally your last game that you picked Wukong Senna, so you're not exactly hiding much here. So there's several things. First off, they don't take Olaf. Like, why not take Wukong Olaf in that first?
So I don't think Blabber likes playing the Trundle Olaf matchup. I mean, whenever they pick Olaf, they generally ban Trundle.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also curious since it does, like the first pick Karma does set up the Olaf really well.
Yes.
And if he's not willing to play Trundle, then their draft is weird, right? Like Blabber doesn't want to play Trundle into Olaf, but then their counter pick isn't Trundle into Olaf.
I mean, to be fair,
what's going on there?
To be fair, Jarvan
Zeyzal could actually be on the LCS. That ESPN guy, he doesn't just go, well, Ezreal's strong. Right, goodbye, go. I get paid now. Like, he could actually be on the desk. He knows people's tendencies, all sorts of shit. Nice. I like it.
To be fair, like Jarvan has long been a potential team fight Olaf counter when you ult him and then EQ out of the Jarvan ult. I'm not in love with it, but I'm pretty sure that
I know
was
why they picked it too. I definitely look at that bot lane. Like you're thinking you can kill them really easily. You have double CC from your bot lane, and you have Jarvan.
Yes, and they also have no way to get out of a Jarvan ult with Karma Ashe. So basically, you're looking at this, you're like, okay, they picked Karma, Olaf, Ashe. I have 3 champs that can't get out of a Jarvan ult. It's not terrible, right? It's not terrible.
Yeah, I get the idea for sure.
But
I could see it being a good idea. Just I'm not sure the execution of it actually ended up that well. Obviously,
well, it's also that they didn't actually threaten the top flex with the Wukong because they pick Jace. So they show their hand and then the Camille gets picked into it, right? So like they don't even try and use the red side advantage that they have in this draft to confuse them at all. And I do get that they were what I think probably happened, I do think this is smart of 100 Thieves, is that their second ban phase was Orianna Azir. So I think they were taking away safe blind mids from Cloud9, because I'm pretty sure if Orianna or Azir is left up, then Niski picks that instead of the Jace. So I have a feeling that something weird happened when those bans went down, where C9 kind of malfunctioned and just picked the Jace. Obviously, there's still potential other picks here. You could have taken the Galio right there and just kind of played it mid and not, I think it wouldn't have been too big of a concern and just saved the flex Wukong for the top side. But, you know, mistakes were made.
Also, listen, if we're giving out credit and we're going in a priority list of what were the most important factors, listen, it's a fun side angle like this Poom switching and out, and how did they change the support? So someday, that's the first word I want you to say. Someday, exactly. Carry champion played around. There's my 3 check marks. We've got to them. Now at that point, if we can get jungle and support doing something brilliant, awesome. But like, why is everyone like, listen, I know it's because of the novelty of like this guy wasn't in LCS. That's cool. I get it. But there's another player in that server who's pretty fucking good.
Sunday's insane. He's still really good. I mean, I think this is, from watching him, I think this has been the worst split he's performed, but I do wonder if he's still in form. It's just harder to perform when your team's not doing well. But some days always look good on a losing team.
I mean,
on that note, I actually looking at their draft, it is really weird. They don't just blind a mid on 3 and double.
That's what
ban.
I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, if they're picking Jarvan, I don't think they're gonna ban Jarvan.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to ban Jarvan.
Likely.
So you could have taken. That's a good point. You could have fucking taken the Orianna or the. You could have just taken Azir.
That would have made their draft look a lot better.
Like, I don't know. The whole thing is just, it was really a weird draft. To me, this just screams C9 just wants to play Senna Wukong this week, and that they're just going to do it for their own learning purposes. And then they kind of just like short circuited during the second, like during their last 3 picks of the draft. Because
there's one thing I wanted to say, right, is this is where you have to always put the context into any statement you're making. So if C9 wanted in any of these splits to go undefeated, you wouldn't do what they've done in these two splits. Like in the last split, they had some weird drafts towards the end of the split. Some of them that they didn't even lose. That's how good they are as a team. That's different. If you're going for the undefeated record, you should draft every game like it was Game 5 of the World Championship. You're trying to win the Worlds. If you want to do what they're doing, which, listen, I actually think is more admirable, which is try to be really good, presumably because you want to have all this variety if you go to Worlds, you're going to lose games. I'm not saying that meant this was an auto loss. It wasn't. Like you can break down some of the nuance here, but there's possibilities to still win. But I actually like that. It just suggests something philosophically about the team. It's not like as we're saying, this wasn't a draft. It was like they just had to pick that, or this guy only plays that. It's like they opted into basically a harder draft.
Yes.
But with the logic,
something new.
Yeah, this could get you somewhere in the future. It could show something you haven't shown before.
Yeah.
My feeling is that they're trying to play into Varus, but
yes,
didn't take it.
Yes, and like here's the other thing is that if you see the Wukong Senna, then if you're 100 Thieves, you're like, well, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going because it was literally the day before you guys played Wukong Senna into TSM. So they're already going to have a plan for that because they literally just saw you do it. And I don't think the plan is terrible. Like I like what 100 Thieves did, but it's also, not to take credit away from 100 Thieves because sure they did have an easy time I think in this draft, but at the end of the day, 100 Thieves, it's been execution for them that's been their issue. And at least in this game, what they did was they played around the Camille advantage in the top side. Licorice made some misplays in the lane early, which allowed the Camille to get ahead. And then you have this incredible split pushing force with the Galio backup and this, the semi-global ult that's going to keep coming up there. And you're going to have a really hard time winning if you're C9 because even though you've got a lot of AoE in a team fight situation, 100 Thieves never has to opt into that at that point because they're snowballing so hard early that there was never really a time for them to use it, honestly. And just objectively in this game, 100 Thieves had better map movement. They were faster on the draw, on teleports in order to get into these team fights. So C9 was never really even fighting as 5 players at any point in this game.
Yeah, I do think a lot of that has to do with draft disadvantage, but it still takes a good team to beat C9 in their current form with a better draft. You still have to be pretty good, so still a lot of credit to 100 Thieves.
Plus, props to Cody's son for figuring out the strategy that you're supposed to do. You do everything that Doublelift doesn't. You pick Ashe, you don't pick Varus, and you win against Cloud9 in 2020. I'm here all week, right?
I guess you have the proof.
Should we talk about LCK because there's not like millions of hours here, Monty? So should we switch to LCK?
Did you watch the DRX Damwon game this last week, Zeyzal? Do you have a chance to check out any LCK?
I did watch DRX Damwon, but
yeah, all right.
I didn't watch many other games.
That's fine. We'll talk about
some
that.
Of T1 dynamics.
We're going to talk generally about the teams, but just for that match, Monty wants to discuss it.
Yeah, I think this was just a train wreck of a match. Like I was really excited coming into this, thinking, hell yeah.
Let me set this up, actually. I'll give people the context. If you haven't been following LCK, what's been different about this split of LCK is that the last split, right, the actual playoff endings was fairly close to how the league was for most of the league. Like, it was a race between, like in theory it has been this split, Gen G, T1, and DragonX. And that's actually in the regular season how it was. And then DRX, the problem they had was, this is why LS was going on about them so much. They were the ultimate sinner team. Like they're like an LPL team playing in the LCK. They try to snowball, they try to get all the abusive champions, they try to beat you up in the way that the other teams, T1 and Gen G, were never doing. They were trying to be like the classic teams. And then basically, even though Gen G overall was the better team in the spring, in the finals, for whatever reason, they just didn't win the final. T1 was more clutch, it was better in the finals, etc. So this split, interestingly enough, DragonX has been the best team for most of the split. And actually, they look like they've taken some of the things from the spring split. Remember, they're a new lineup and leveled up a bit, actually. Even some of the players like Thorin are looking way better. Pioshik still has issues. We'll get into that. And so basically, coming up to this week, you would have thought, this is DRX's league. This is their time. They're going to win. But they start out immediately by losing to Katie Rolster, who actually isn't good at the moment. And they were doing a very weird moves, like drafting their game. When they lose that game, you think, oh, well, if they've lost that game, maybe they're going to start slumping now. Well, that's exactly when T1 is supposed to beat them and then take the crown of the best team in the LCK or challenge it with Gen G. And then obviously DRX just wins this game against Damwon anyway. So it's like, I do think overall Damwon is the best. I do think overall DRX is the best team in the league. It's just that they're also the most volatile of the top teams.
So
like Team 1 is really hard to beat in terms of generally.
I'm not even sure I agree with you, Thorin, because of this series. So we also like putting this into context, right?
Brilliant.
So the hype was all right. So we've got the top 2 teams in terms of record in the league coming in. Earlier in the week, it was DragonX losing to KT with Smeb on support, right? So obviously really weird
because
there.
He was playing Maokai
because he was playing Maokai and they were playing Senna Maokai and other stuff, right? And then you have Damwon, who absolutely just shits on Africa Freaks. Like, game 2 was not even close. Canyon on Nidalee just completely took over this game. He was like level 12 to Spirit's level 7 at like 17 minutes into this game in the Nidalee Trundle matchup. So he's just completely dominating. So Damwon's looking really hot. DRX is looking a little bit iffy. So there's the setup.
What? You mean for that one game, homie? DRX is way better than Damwon. Damwon is the new KT roster. They just have a great game and then they shit the bed against anyone.
Yes. I'm saying this week, that was the setup coming in this week. Yes, I agree with you.
I agree. Damwon was supposed to win this game, yeah.
So then when we get to DRX versus Damwon, this is a series that DRX wins, but it could so easily have been a 3-0 or a 2-0 for Damwon. Like, Damwon was legitimately in the lead for all 3 of these games, and they like giga through the first game in this series. I like, it is actually crazy that Damwon managed to lose, especially in the last game when Nagari was just putting Doran in the dumpster on the Camille and they had these insane setups. And the only reason Damwon even lost that first game was because they completely and totally fell apart in this base race / Baron play where they split their attention between trying to like defend this Baron that DRX was taking while simultaneously trying to end the game. If they had just done one or the other, they probably would have won. And this would have been, I think, a 2-0 for Damwon. But because game 2 was not even close. It was just a Damwon stomp from start to finish.
I got that feeling as well, that it was like in a very, very different scenario DRX could win, but with how the games played out, it should have been a Damwon 2-0. Like game 1, they were up almost 10k.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
That's insane.
It was disgusting. And I just thought this entire series was like really disappointing just because I think Damwon just had everything. And for me, Damwon is like the ultimate team that they just, when they get, I think they're in their own heads. I think they were just playing DRX, so they like psyched themselves out of this match, because there's no reason that you should be making the number of macro mistakes that they did, or trying to like simultaneously punish a Baron while killing the enemy's base. Is just a wild finish to that game 1. And it made me like really disappointed. Like, Damwon, you can see the individual skill there, but for some reason the choke is also there in that late game macro. And to DRX's credit, they've got a lot more of the veteran players on this roster historically, so it makes sense that they would have more poise in these situations. But DRX was really gifted this series in a lot of ways. Like, the 2 games DRX did win, they should not have won. It reminds me a lot of the LPL finals where Top should have won that series last season.
Oh, agreed. But it's also that whole angle of like, one of the things you have to say is a hallmark of DRX is like a super decisive team. That's why they go so fucking hard and snowball off the games. Damwon, that's another thing. I've seen this so much in my career in esports. A player or a team who has the potential to be the best. They have all the qualities you'd want. They have strengths here and they're pretty good here. And generally they always have a certain good level. But then it's always like decision making in a key big game that throws the whole thing for them. Yeah. Because what happens is the fact that they have all these things. So one quality that you nearly always have to have is you have to in some ways be smart, because you have to be so smart. You second guess yourself and you start overthinking it, or you have some weird reaction or something. In some ways it can be good to just be the idiot who's like, I just run in and kill people. It's like, because that. Guess what? There's no way to fuck that up. You just do it or you don't. Like, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's an underrated trait. Honestly, it's probably weird to say, but having someone who speaks like that is a lot of confidence when you're playing stage matches, especially. Like the first season Blobber played, that was definitely more of his style. It's not the same anymore, but that's what we needed at the time, and that's what that was the perfect trait for our roster.
Yes, makes sense.
I couldn't believe this series. I'm still like in shock having watched it, and just the level of disappointment that I experienced.
Game 1 was really strange. Like you wouldn't believe they could lose this game. When you look at after they got the Baron, Damwon, you look at the game, you look at the gold, you're like, yeah, this game's over for sure. 9k gold lead.
The only problem I have, though, is we go forwards, because like DRX is one of the teams that, as long as they don't fall apart completely, you're going to be a contender for Worlds. And they actually, like I was saying, they look like one of the few teams I think that can play against the LPL. I'm ignoring the MSC thing, because that went pretty bad for all of LCK. When we get to an actual offline tournament, we have a real Worlds. I think DRX is one of the ones you can pin your hopes on. It's not like those last splits where all the teams coming from Korea, except Griffin, who ironically didn't fucking put Thorin in. So congrats in that Challenger League, you shitters. So deserved. No, but the one problem I have is this. Right now in the game, one of the few roles I wouldn't want to have one of my weaker players, that is jungle.
Yeah.
And I think that is one. Listen, maybe he can level up before then, but if I want to see them as a world champion, I have a hard time seeing Pure Shit getting it done at Worlds in that regard. Like, I think he has too many. He's just too green. You know, he's actually like where the Canyon guy was a year ago.
I really wish that they had a different entire top side of the map, because as you're saying, Thorin is stable. And in fact, in this series, even though he got completely crapped on by Nuguri, it just showed that how, you know, oftentimes that doesn't even matter in top lane these days, as long as you're grouping up or playing objectives. So I don't think it's as consequential as the jungle position, but wouldn't it be nice if Canyon and Nuguri were on DRX instead? I agree that they're kind of fatally flawed in that way, though, as we approach Worlds. Like, it's getting a little too close for those guys to be playing like this and to be considered super serious contenders.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that just the core of Chovy Def, that's pretty insane, right?
It's fire, yeah.
So,
and Korea has also been
one of the best,
super good.
Yeah.
Like their other three players are
for
amazing.
First year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Damwon's top side has always been insane. When you play versus these guys, even Showmakers, like Chovy's good, but Showmaker's like nearly as good. He's really insane too. But just Nigiri and Canyon are both too good, actually.
Agreed. Here's the other thing, though. To complete the true insanity of the upsets this week, we have to talk. You don't have to talk specifically about the game, but just the context. That, like, it was already crazy enough that Smeb plays fucking support and they win against DRX when they couldn't even win with their real team against the worst teams. Then you have this DRX Damwon Gaming, which is supposed to be the marquee matchup, which, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, LCK. You have no one to blame for how everyone's shitting on your league but yourselves. That's the game everyone in the world was tuning in for, to see what you have to offer. And that's what you showed us. Then, to close it out, you're like, oh, well, just a couple of boring games to end the week. So, for example, right, everyone obviously is still hyped on the novelty angle about Yamato Cannon getting his first win for Sandbox, right? And I was ready to come on this show and tell you, can you calm the fuck down? They were losing against the good teams, and that was against fucking Team Dynamics. You know they're not a top team, right? So then, of course, Team Dynamics beats T1. By the way, one of the hardest teams in LCK to beat in theory. And we're actually in a world where, again, this is the fucking timeline we're in. The faker of HOTS is role swapped in the top lane and beat an actual faker in a fucking good team. Like, what is this shit? This is so dark. This is so dark.
Yeah, that was like, when I first heard that, I thought it was really overplayed, because I'm just watching this guy and he looks like average.
He is average usually. Yeah.
But he just pulls out Lucian top. I mean, he's looking good, yeah. That was such a weird narrative for like the first 6 months he played. It was like the faker of HOTS, as he kind of just looks bad on an average team, I guess.
Especially because here's the thing, right? If you said the faker of HOTS beat faker in HOTS, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Makes no sense he beats him in League of Legends. I mean, I know this guy apparently played League of Legends before, and obviously that must have been part of his background to go into HOTS or whatever. So it's not as bad as I make it sound there, but like this upset, by the way, no joke, this is one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen in LCK. Like, as the Team Dynamics team is supposed to be at best mid-table, at best.
Kuzan.
Kuzan used to be on the shit Jinair and the old like bad incredible miracle or something, right?
He was the best player on the old shit Jinair.
True,
to be
he
fair.
would pop off. He was like Mickey, mate. He would have the one game where he carried, and the rest of the time they were all just dumpsters, weren't they? Like, the idea Kuzan's going to win a best of 3 against Faker, get the fuck out.
I just love this because honestly, LCK, the way you set it up right now, does actually sound like a fantasy novel. So you start with the golden age of the LCK, right? Oh, here's the king, Faker. He's dominant. Look at this glorious civilization that they've built. And then in comes the darkness. The invader from Hots, Rich, comes and destroys the king, right? The fall of the empire. But it's okay that there's hope. There's hope because in 1,000 years, the evil god of Riot will unban Apto, and he will lead us to a second great empire of the LCK, right?
I've just realised. Wait a minute, is that why the ban was 1,000 years? Because they knew that Apto was so sick because he can adapt to any meta and he plays all the roles, right? That obviously that's like 5 generations of League of Legends creative dev balancing. So that's to give them time to prepare the game before Apto arrives, because he's sort of like Darkseid in the DC universe. When he arrives, he just takes over everything and so they obviously, the 200 years, 5 of those is 1,000.
That's one Apto.
Code level shit, Monty, but
so there you go. That's what the god Riot does need 1,000 years to develop the game to Apto's skill level, at which time the glorious Korean Empire shall be reborn and we will enter into another dynasty.
You know when people do that stuff where they just get too attached to streamers and they actually start thinking that because they worship this streamer that you as a normal human also worship him. I always call him Apto, right? Because that was his original name. But later, because he had to change his name, he called himself Dope, etc. People always used to put comments like, actually, he'd prefer to be called Dope. And I was like, I don't really give a fuck what he'd prefer. What are you talking about? Like, why do I give a shit what some guy who boosts people thinks? Like, I can just call him whatever I want. Like, can you guys just settle down? Like, you worship the Apto. I don't. I just watch him play video games. Well, very well, but just video games, isn't it? No offense to Zeyzal, whose entire job is playing video games. Well,
hey, what do you mean? Your job is to analyze. That's true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
We're just
have a different role within the industry.
True.
That's right. We're just the parasites on the people who play the video games.
In a way,
I'm just a remora to your shark, Zeyzal. That's how I consider myself.
What do you actually think, though? Because we only touched on it briefly there. Obviously, the guy who's been the revelation this year has been Carrier on the DRX team, because he's not only is he playing with Deft, but he looks like a monster himself. What do you think of him as a player?
I think he's really good. I mean, so in terms of supports, they had Effort come up as well, who I thought was pretty good, but I was never as impressed. I guess Carrier is like the player I've been most impressed by that's recently come up and been, I guess, a new support. He's definitely someone I tend to watch almost all his games just because it's something you can learn so easily from, and it's impressive how good he is this early.
The only thing is, am I mistaken here? I think, isn't there like still no pro view you can access from LCK? Do they have that yet?
No. LPL has VODs that are on YouTube generally, but not even. Generally, it's pretty hard to find pro viewer supports too, I think, even from LPL.
That sucks.
It does
But
suck.
I just watch VODs.
It's
normal.
even weirder too, because I think the reason behind the lack of pro view is because you guys aren't at the arena, right? So they're not using the PCs that you would use on stage.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But
LTK is at the arena.
but exactly. Why is that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make sense because those guys are actually there. So you would think that it would be easier to do, but I guess for some reason it can't happen.
So previously, LCK did their weird own version of ProView. I wonder if that's still going. I don't remember what it was, but it was like some app you had to have installed. I don't know how they do it now, but it is weird. ProView in general has been like entirely dismissed, even for regions that are playing in studio.
It's a shame though, because that's one of the things I've actually really enjoyed, is that on a lot of my talk shows, sometimes players will say like, oh, like if they're an AD character, like, oh, I was watching Perks' pro views and like it was very interesting the way he positioned. I feel like the coolest thing to me is that it's not just like for fans that it's been interesting. It sounds like pro players themselves have found it like an interesting way to scout someone that you want to take something from or see how he does something. Because on the VOD, like, you just don't get it all, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you rarely see what you actually need to see. You pretty much will always see team fights, but it's hard to see laning from minute 1 to 10, and a lot of the game is decided from how good you are in lane. Like, a lot of how the game will play out is generally indicated from how lane goes. So ProView has pretty much changed the concept of like getting better at laning. You can learn directly by watching the ProView of a duo, especially. Like, you can watch both or your role, but you can learn how to lane much better by doing that.
By the way, there's another thing, Monty, is another reason why the game is way more watchable now. It's not like when fucking Ardent Sensor was there. It's like, who cares about the lane? It's like, what? Like, what the first 15 minutes of the game don't matter. Like, none of the matchups matter. What is this shit? Like, I couldn't believe it when I was watching that era. I was like, this is the worst era of League ever. Like, there's problems now, but it's a pretty good game generally.
Yeah, I mean, the game has so many objectives early, and it's hard to say if it's a bad or a good thing, but there's one thing that's for sure, early game definitely matters now. There's 15 plates. You can get 2 Rift Heralds by 14 minutes, 3 Dragons by, like, 18 minutes? It's pretty insane.
I have one question for you, actually, though. Ages ago, I think it was LS on Twitter, explained how you're supposed to use the Rift Herald, right? Which is that depending on what tower you're taking, you don't just set it loose first. You sometimes take enough of the plates so that you get more out of it, right?
Because of
the amount of pro players I see that don't do that still is insane. How come some of these teams don't know that? Admittedly, I didn't know, but
we didn't know. We didn't know at the beginning of this year, actually. It was pretty insane.
Well, these are the hidden mechanics that Riot has, though. Like, you actually have to specifically know that the tankiness of the turret goes up the more plates are removed.
We knew that.
Yeah,
we were just not connecting. Literally 5 pro players did not connect that.
But
if the turret gets tankier, we should use the true damage later. I was really dumb, but it's really obvious now.
That's right.
But these are opaque mechanics.
A good job. These are elucidate and stuff like that, you know.
But these are the opaque mechanics that it has. So here's an example of like the kind of game design that really frustrates me in League of Legends. First off, the fact that that exists. But second off, so you know what they did visually, right? So you have like the shield with like the 5 like plates that actually drop off of it. So the hilarious thing is that it appears to be getting less tanky, right? Because it like the chunks are falling off of it, but in reality it's actually getting more tanky. So like you created a really weird like invisible mechanic and then you represented it the opposite of what it actually does, so that you just specifically have to have that information, right?
That's been my biggest problem with League from day one, is like when I'm watching other games like Dota, I've never even played Dota at a high level, but I can just sort of intuitively figure out what's going on. I've always enjoyed the game as a result. When I play League, I always say this, like when I see a champion like Janna send out that fucking W bird, like that looks sick, but it doesn't. It's just like actually a bird just came like tapped you on. All right. It's not actually that good. Like half the abilities are totally disproportionate to what like the animation is, etc. And then you have abilities that are just like mad low key, that are just insane. And you're like, what? If you didn't play that champ, you'd have no idea how good that was.
Like Affiliate Assault, it doesn't even look like anything. It just like destroys your health
wave
bar.
And then it hits you, pops your whole team. There's definitely the visual indicators definitely lack, I'd say. It's like that not only the plating is an example with the turrets, but also turrets rev up to deal about 1.5 times damage, which is pretty insane. It's doubling the damage a turret deals if you continually tank shots. But there's no real visual indication that a turret's going to hit you for 400 instead of 200, which is pretty strange.
By the way, when people hear what he says there, what we mean is something like, when it's about to do 1.5 times more damage, why not have like a thing on the side of the tower that like cracks something up, like, and when it gets to that point, then it does the more, you know, something that would make it feel intuitive. Like even if no one told you, eventually your brain would start to pattern recognize that anyway. I agree. The Affiliate Assault is the best example. Affiliate Assault should look like Ezreal's ult, but 4 times bigger as it flies towards you. That's what it actually feels like what it does to you in the game. So give me a break, Riot.
It's not a big deal when you're playing, but I think it would definitely like make the game more interesting to watch. Like the bigger effects on abilities that are actually going to make or break a team fight or just win you the game.
That's why Dota always looked sick. It's also because, without making this a whole aside, because Dota has that way bigger threat range. Yes. When they catch someone in Dota, it's like it's like the fucking Avengers. People are just appearing out of nowhere, flying in like crazy as well, and everyone's just in there instantly, like the end of Endgame or some shit. It's like League of Legends is like people walking up, like just skipping along.
The balance of Dota is like more towards abilities are all stronger.
Sure.
So
and item actives as well.
And in that regard, like the actual champion abilities are all stronger, item actives are stronger, and that's a form of balance, right?
Yes.
Everything being weak is like, you just get standout examples when everything's weak, but it's pretty hard.
It's why, basically, even though people know that it's like a very, very famous example because there's that famous cartoon where it's like how StarCraft's balanced, which is that you give the massive axe to the different guy next month. And then the way Dota's balanced is they both have a massive axe. And then League, the famous one, this is a really old cartoon, was they both have tiny daggers. Well, the problem with that is because you can never make every dagger in the game tiny, we all just spend every week complaining about whatever the axe is in that toy. That's the problem with League. The whack-a-mole approach just means there's always the one thing that comes up that then looks mega broken. But actually half of why it's broken is because there's not enough counters to it. It just is too good on its own, you know.
Well, what they've said, actually, and what's interesting is that in the preview for the end of this year, for the next season of League after Worlds, it does appear from their vague dev post that they made that they are moving into a more active item strategy. So they've said that they're overhauling the item system, which in my opinion has been desperately needed for a long time because League's entire itemization, especially around certain roles like AD carry, has just been like stat sticks, which is pretty boring, and also leads to...
Auntie, I told you years ago, one of the most straight fire ones that they should have had. I'm trying to remember what champion it was for, though, because it was a champion that had to do like... Oh, it was for Riven. That's it. Do you remember this analogy I had? Something like Riven, or in this case, it'd be an item that did something like that. What they should have is, it shouldn't just be that you press the buttons. What you should do, because you're trying to do all these like animation cancels and combos and stuff, it should basically be like fucking Ocarina of Time or something. You have some sort of control thing where you have to like play to like
rhythm game.
Like some of them have rhythm, exactly. Some of them have rhythm elements to it, and other ones like you fill in like like one of them. I'd love it if there was one where, no joke, make it like TF, but it's like an actual like spinning roulette wheel or something, and you have to land it right on that one to get, I got the gold card. Yes, like I think some of that would just be cool. Because imagine what pro players could do with stuff like that. Obviously not as, like I made that last one a bit too gimmicky, but the idea would be there'd be a skill element involved in it, you know. Basically almost like taking fighting game components and putting them in the game.
Sure, I'm down.
Because I think for some of the active, I agree with you. The idea you just press the button on the active and that's it. That's a bit too linear for me.
The only one that's like even remotely close to that is like Redemption, I guess. That has some skill to it. It's like timing and it's global, but there's no real like item active usage that requires skill.
And now's our chance to get rid of Crit, the worst stat in the game. So I'm hoping that Crit just dies a horrible death. I prefer actually pro players being able to kind of accurately accurately judge how much damage they're going to take when they go into a situation or deal, rather than just randomly crits happening. So I'd be down for that. Let's do more actives, less crits. Down with
also,
RNG, up with decision making.
Riot, please make there be an intuitive logic as to what as to what actives that you don't have on your champion role do. So, for example, I'll give you a very quick anecdote. I can't remember if it was the end of last year or early this year when people like first started playing Mordekaiser and it was like OP in top lane, right? It took 8 people ages to figure out that you could actually just like cleanse the like Death Realm or whatever. But I tell you what, when I found it out, I had a fucking amazing week in solo queue because I was just being an absolute dick to all the top. I was making them put me in a Death Realm. And then I was just waiting till they were coming close and I would just cleanse it. And then I was playing Pikes. I just fuck right off them. Like, I'd make it look like, oh shit, I'm trapped on the edge. I can't get out. Oh, he's coming. And then I would just ruin this guy's game, which, by the way, plays back into my original philosophy that Riot's way to play the game is it's to ruin everyone else's fun, not to have fun yourself. That is League of Legends in a nutshell. And in that day, I became a League of Legends player. Before that, I was just playing the game.
Trolling, the true skill in
exactly.
Solo
I wasn't even
League
trying to win. Exactly.
All right, we do have to talk about some EU news that happened while we were sitting here. So first off, Origin has acquired Jactroll, the free agent support formerly of Vitality, presumably because Destiny is not amazing. Pretty one-dimensional support player. Any thoughts on Jactroll there, Zeyzal versus Destiny? I mean, it doesn't seem like a major upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jactroll's ever really looked like that great of a player. He hasn't looked number 1 or anything, so I guess they're just more... They must have some really major concerns to be willing to shift a roster. It could just be... It's just hard to improve with him or something to do with dynamic, but I would assume that it's just play related. Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah, what I would guess is this. First of all, if people don't know, because obviously in the League of Legends world, people won't know this, the Astralis group that owns Origin and also Astralis in Counter-Strike has been going through some significant financial issues recently, or at least it turns out there's actually more to that. Like maybe they do have the money, but they just don't want to spend it. So they want other people to take pay cuts to make up for that. So like basically it's all about how they're balancing the margins financially. And so I've already heard stories which have been corroborated that, for example, some of the star players of OG just took pay cuts to even get someone like Upset onto their team.
Yes.
So it's actually intimated to me that that's why afterwards they were picking up, for example, Destiny as the support player. It's not that they scouted him and he's the best support ever that no one knew in Oceanic region. It's that I guess he probably wasn't super expensive and he probably wasn't like some of the players you might have had to buy from an ERL team or another top LEC team. So they weren't trying to make an all-star team. They actually were trying to have a few really good players and then fill what they could around them and hope the players were good enough. So two factors that go in line with that is one, especially mid-split, anyone who has a buyout there, they are going to gouge you so hard if it's a good player, if you want to buy him mid-split. So all the players, everyone's going to say, why don't you get this guy and this guy from lower teams? They're not even going to be available guys, because even if that player wants to go, that org's going to say, well, I'm not just going to give you one of my best players if I'm below you in the league and I've still got the rest of the split to go and I still dream I'm going to go to Worlds. So if they don't have the money, they're already limited as to who they can get. And if I had to guess, if you just look at where Jactroll's career has gone the last year or so, it was probably a very cheap option. I'm sure it was just a gamble that you could just go for, and just if it fails, you probably didn't spend that much anyway.
It's also that they could be competing for the spot too, right? There's no, like, just because he's been signed doesn't mean that he's going to be instantly given the starting position.
Database.
I also do think as well, like, I also do think you have to add in as well that with the way the split's gone, I don't think Upset's ever been unleashed properly in the way that I know he can be. Like, that guy was a monster when he was on past. Like, even when he was on the Schalke team, he was the team. If they got him activated, he could win the game for you. On this Origin team, that doesn't ever happen almost. And even though he's still in theory one of the better players, it's not going to help if your support players, one of the ones that everyone thinks is the worst player on the team. So, like, I don't necessarily hate the idea of gambling on that one. Like, I agree with you. I don't think it's an upgrade. I've never thought Jactroll was a good player, to be fair. But I would guess it's maybe something like they only had limited options. Maybe they even just asked Upset, just duo with a couple of people. Is there anyone could play this role? And then just get someone who, and in this case, Jactroll he has to take the chance. He has to try and get back in a pro scene. So I think for all sides, there's a logic to it, even though the problem is if you don't know the business side, it's going to look mad underwhelming because you're like, what? There's even people in the ERL you'd rather have than that. But the point is no one's giving these players for free. Yeah. This isn't like the old days where if TSM says join, you go, sorry, I'm joining them now. It's like, no, you have to, there's business involved now. Like, put it this way, that when the Cleveland Browns suck in the NFL, they don't go, well, we suck. So you know what? One of these playoff teams, do you want Odell Beckham? You can just have him for cheap. And that. Like, why would they? It's business guys. Why would they give him away?
To be fair, if you're the Houston Texans, you do kind of give away players for free. But that's an entire thing.
At the moment, some of their current and former players are trying to give their whole careers away, but nothing like that.
I think this, in part, comes down to what I was saying earlier about when the dynamic of a team is just off, sometimes there's no better solution than just changing something. And I think this could be an example of that, where it's like Origin doesn't feel like they're in a good place and need a change. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but oftentimes replacing a player does increase that level of motivation and all of that. Like we mentioned earlier, what happened on C9.
It's true. When you're in a hot air balloon, if you cut one of the sandbags off, it actually goes higher without any additional fuel needed.
That's not an effective strategy, but I mean, I guess it's effective at something.
So the other news that happened today that I want to talk about is that G2 has re-signed their entire roster through the end of 2022. So we have at least 2 more years with these players signed to G2, which is obviously a great move for the G2 organization, but another infuriating move for me personally, because I always wonder why the fuck no one goes into free agency in League of Legends. Why doesn't anybody ever test the market?
You've been, for me, you'd like a morpho for all of that. But we can sort of pick up every like 4th word. So is everyone here now? We still here?
All right. They can hear me. Let's just go ahead and refresh the call real quick.
Hello?
Hello. All right.
There we go. Right, now it works again. There we go. Here's the thing, though. I don't know about you, Zeyzal, but I could hear like 2 out of every 3 words. So I think I sort of heard what he said. Did you hear him?
No. So the audience hears it because obviously they can hear directly from my machine. But basically, like, I don't understand why everyone just goes ahead and signs these new deals without ever testing free agency. Perkz is the most valuable player in the history of Western League of Legends. He is versatile. He is.
Yeah, go on.
Hold on. Let me finish my rant. Then we'll hear logic, okay, Zeyzal? Let me get mad first.
Okay.
You come in and you play good cop, okay?
All right.
Great. He's the most valuable player in the history of Western League of Legends. He's a shot caller. He's an incredible emotional leader for the team. He can play multiple positions for you. This guy can get a massive paycheck. Not to say that he didn't from G2, but shouldn't you at least just, I don't know, see what your options are? That's crazy to me. Crazy.
Thoughts, Zeyzal?
So I know I've never actually gone free agency aside from when E United didn't make essentially franchising. That was the last time I was a free agent. But I know it's difficult to be in a situation where you feel like your team's doing well and you all get along well, and it's kind of like peer pressure in a way. It's really weird. And I think that's a problem as well. When everybody just renews their contract together and at a similar time, they're like talking to each other and they're like, oh yeah, we'll just always be here together. And then something happens. I don't know. An example, C9 benches 2 players, Svenskar and Zeyzal trades them off. Then the team you signed an extra 3 years with is no longer the same team. I think it's a lot of short-sightedness, but also there's pressure from your teammates as well as the organization itself will oftentimes pressure you to extend your contract.
Especially early like this, where it's not the...
They actually, that's what they do a lot of the time, is they try to get you to do it. Like, as soon as 1 year's up in your contract, they're like, oh, it's time to renegotiate, you know?
Exactly. Which means, by the way, you must have had a straight fire first year. Exactly. Yes. Here's the thing. I actually had a video on this exact topic, but it was in CSGO. And it's because in CSGO, since me and Monty are involved with this Flashpoint League, even though we're just in theory like the creatives of the league, that people are so bad at GMing in CSGO that I'm basically having to like half play GM for half of these teams. Like, I'm trying to find players who want to join. I'm trying to find people who are in teams but want to leave and join who are good players. And then I'm trying to, because there's no poaching rules in CS, I'm trying to bring those players to teams and say, look, contact this guy. Like, your team would be better if you got this guy. You could upgrade this position. This guy's like, you know, like an underrated player who's going to break out next year. You can get him this year for cheap. So when I'm doing all this stuff, right, when I'm talking to players, I'm picking players as a result who I think could be on a better team or maybe should try a different one. Like, they've only played for 1 year and they're going to be in their second or third year and they could really level up the money they make. So I've experienced exactly what I think goes on here, and it kills me because basically here's the discussion that I have had so many times. It goes like this, right? When does your contract end? Oh, it's in a few months, but I'm just going to re-sign anyway. Well, no, wait, like, because if you wait, like, you can think about doing that, and like, I'll get you some like prospective suitors who will come and bid for you, etc. And they go, no, but I don't want to join those teams. No, that's irrelevant though. Like, just let them come anyway, make their case. For all you know, first of all, you can never know all the people that are out there. Maybe someone comes and makes you an offer that's even more insane. Like, maybe they say, we'll take 3 years and put 2 players you really want to play with and make an even better team. Listen, doesn't apply to the G2 case because they have basically the best teammates. But for a lot of players, this would apply. Like, they don't know what offers are out there. And then I said, even if you end up not wanting to do it, like, let's say you go into it not wanting to do it, all the offers you don't want to do it, and at the end you go, I don't want to do it, you now have more bargaining power in your re-signing with your team. And that's where they always fail. Because what we're talking about here, the reason Zeyzal points out quite aptly that they always try to get you to re-sign before your contract ends, that essentially, here's the communication that they're translating there without saying it. They're saying, you're playing so well that we either want to lock you up for this kind of money now so you don't test us in free agency, or if we end up selling you, sell you for fuck tons like Zeyzal and Svenskar, for example. So in this world, that's why they do that approach, right? The problem is, as the pro player, as long as you don't trip over halfway through the next split and break your arm and never recover, you will never get your true market value unless you test the market. Because when you test the market, as I said, you can even then get G2 to pay more. And by the way, if G2 wins Worlds or wins a bunch of splits, they should be paying more for the same lineup next year. That is totally appropriate to the way the market goes right now. Why wouldn't the best players in their region for split after split after split get an upgrade, get a pay rise, at least find out, Team Liquid would actually pay what? Twice for as much for me. Well, even if I don't want twice as much, Carlos, I've got to at least get, 1.5 or something. That's what should be happening. So that's where I noticed the other angle that Zeyzal pointed out there as well, is it's always the personal angle. But they get you with the like, oh, come on, old buddy, old pal. Wouldn't it be great if we played together? It's like, motherfucker, when I'm signing my contract and I'm actually negotiating terms, we're businessmen sat across the table at that point, and we're going, well, the projections for next year. Like, at that point in time, the friend hat just comes off and the businessman hat's on. So stop getting played players. Because I agree with you, Monty. This is criminal in the case of G2, because every fan, right, is now going to totally misunderstand everything I just said. And here's what they're going to say on Reddit, Monty. They're going to go, idiots. Well, they want to leave G2. As I just said, it's not about leaving G2. It's about your value. So Perks is the Western GOAT. Caps is probably the player who, if I had to bet on for the next 5 years, is the most valuable player in the world. Jankos is the best jungler, probably, I think, one of the best junglers to ever play League of Legends. Forget even regions. Wonder could carry any of the teams below G2 to the playoffs, so loads of teams would want him. And that leaves who?
Mickey?
One player left, who's still one of the best at his role. So every single one of these players should have tested free agency. And by the way, because they're so good, they even have the one angle most players don't have in free agency, which is just like Svenskeren when he had to go to TSM and he was going to originally go to H2K and he got caught between, and it was like the musical chairs mode, and he last second thought, I'm going to get left out of a deal here, so I better join this team. That's why he initially verbally agreed to join H2K, because he didn't know what TSM was going to ask him, so he was worried that he was going to get left out and join a bad team. The one thing that these G2 players wouldn't have is that, because actually G2's just misplayed their hand by asking them to all resign, and they wouldn't want to replace them anyway. Like, do you think Caps was going to get replaced by Nemesis, or fucking Bwipo was going to be in Wonderspot? Of course they weren't. So there will never be another 5 set of players in the history of League of Legends who will misplay their re-signing of a contract more than this. And I realise, right, they could come back to me and say, but I still want to play in G2, and if I don't even care about the money and that, great, but the point still stands. We're making an abstract point about the industry here.
Here's the other thing, Zeyzal. It's like, I totally agree with you that there could be pressure from the peers, right? Their peers to re-sign. But here's another factor that you have to consider. These 5 guys could just negotiate together, have insane leverage. They could literally go, well, our contract's up. Hey, every other LEC team, would you like to pay for all 5 of us to go to your roster instead? Speaking of which, that literally happened in Counter-Strike when Luminosity, the Brazilian roster, was up for grabs, and they all went to SK because they all went together. They just said, we're going together.
They were the major winners at the time.
Yes.
Exactly.
Like, if G2 wants to win, it's not like them staying together is predicated on them being on the G2 team. That's not a thing. They could go to any team and do that, right? So even if their ultimate goal, like Thorin is saying, so I don't even think is just like a pact among themselves as players or a dedication to grow together and win. That has nothing to do with their contracts with G2. And just go ahead and all of you just say pay up G2, we're worth this. And we want to stay with you, but you have to make a competitive offer compared to what potentially any other team in the LEC could do, or we're just all going to defect over there. That's what I would do.
By the way, I'll even throw this in as well. I'm arguing against my own self-interest. Because Monty knows this. I hate the way that the NFL and the NBA are structured as franchise leagues that encourages moves like the one he was referring to, where one of the best players on the Houston Texans, a team that had chances to, a dark horse to win the Super Bowl, have just pointlessly given away a good player because of the way that the structure works. You're always incentivized, unless you're on the best team, to just go elsewhere for more money. I hate that because as a greedy viewer, I want all these teams to have the best players. So I want G2 to play with these 5 forever. I want to see how far this can go because it's one of the great teams. But if you went this approach, you know what? Maybe one of them does accept an offer, or maybe they don't get the deal they want. So maybe they break up. So I'm actually arguing against my own self-interest as a viewer here. But I just want people in the future, because this is the most extreme version of the case to show, to understand that this is where young people, because most of these pros tend to be 20, 21. This is where being a young person, dude, they use that against you. That's why they flex into the personal side. That's why they make it about we're all mates. And look, what about loyalty? It's I tell you what loyalty is. Ask Denick what loyalty is when DOS just replaces him even though he's done perfectly fine the split before. That's loyalty. Businesses do business moves. Players need to do business moves, in my opinion.
I have to agree. I mean, I can tell you it's definitely players being young is most of the reason, I would say. There's a lot of, I guess, how close you are with your boss and how much you interact with them definitely plays towards the personal side and how they tend to get you on the contracts.
It's weird how that worked, isn't it, Zeyzal? The way Jack was like, you know what, Zeyzal? You're one of the best players I've brought in. I just want to I want to lock you in this. I want to commit to you for a few years. Right? Bidders for Zeyzal and Seskin. They're enormous buyouts, but I'm selling them like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like, what are you talking about? I've got you on the contract, boy. Like, I'll sell you anytime I want. Like, I bet that felt fucking dark when that started happening. Like, wait a minute, where's Uncle Jack? Like, where's that guy again? He's like, sorry, businessman Jack is here. Now he's got one of those
That's true.
on like the
Uncle
poker
Jack
player.
definitely left. I mean, Jack didn't do anything wrong. I definitely...
No, yeah, of course.
And I was short-sighted to re-sign my contract, I would agree. Like, pretty much every player in hindsight could say that, but it's like... It's something you definitely have to... Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyway, I hope all pro players watch this segment. Is all I'm saying. Like, please, guys,
Dude, it could literally make you hundreds of thousands of dollars even for the same thing. Please watch this segment.
We're rooting for you.
That really might actually teach you something. The rest of it was a lot of just talking shit and us saying stuff.
All right. Well, with that, thanks for watching Summoning Insight. We'll be back next week with more. Thank you very much for joining us, Zeyzal. You were wonderful.
Thank you as well.